Previously, Guan continued expanding Mystic Valley while concealing the terrifying power hidden beneath his ordinary appearance. When Li Ya returned with serious injuries, Guan gave him an azure vine fruit and received the imperial sword Tiansu in return. He then invested thousands of years of lifespan into the Li family's 7 swords, transforming it into the formidable Taikong Shocking God Sword and raising his mastery of the Sword Dao to an extraordinary level. Deep beneath the valley, Guan discovered that his grandmaster, Jiang Qiong, was still alive. A powerful cultivator from the Thousand Autumn Pavilion, she began teaching him soul arts, demonic techniques, formations, and secret methods, without realizing that her seemingly timid grand disciple had already reached the Nascent Soul Realm. And when 2 ruthless demonic cultivators threatened Li Ya, Li Xuanyu, and everyone in Mystic Valley, Guan finally acted from the shadows. With nothing more than 2 ordinary leaves, he ended the battle in an instant, leaving the survivors searching for the mysterious expert, now known as the Flying Leaf Sword Immortal. Let us continue with Episode 4. Ever since Zuo Lin had tried to teach Guan swordsmanship, every time the 2 crossed paths, Zuo Lin would glare at him with wounded resentment. It made Guan deeply uncomfortable. Fortunately, Li Ya was still around, so Zuo Lin did not dare pester him. Life continued day after day, with cultivators flying across the skies above Mystic Valley almost constantly. Whenever someone passed overhead, Guan used his lifespan ability to inspect their cultivation realm. He had even encountered several nascent soul cultivators, though he had no idea which sects they belonged to. Spring passed and summer arrived. Guan turned 28. Ever since reaching the 9th level of the Nascent Soul Realm, he had suspended his daily cultivation plan. He was afraid of wasting lifespan and intended to save up a large amount before attempting his next breakthrough. Besides hard work, he also believed in a little mysticism. The scorching days of summer arrived. In the mountain forest, Guan reclined beneath a tree and read. Wu Xin was directing Tang Yu, Su Han, and Zhen Qin as they pulled weeds, while Xiaoshuan and Yelan cultivated inside the valley. Tang Yu wiped the sweat from his forehead. His gaze drifted toward the volume of the Azure Hero's Travels in Guan's hands, and curiosity filled his eyes. What kind of book was it, exactly? The greatest mystery in the entire valley was what the Azure Hero's Travels actually contained. All 3 disciples wanted to read it, but Guan kept every volume hidden away. No matter how they searched the scripture pavilion, they could not find a single copy. A large white spirit rat suddenly sprang from the undergrowth and raced straight into Guan's arms. Guan noticed that it was carrying something in its mouth and immediately sat upright. The rat spat out an egg about the size of a chicken egg. Its shell was pale blue-white, covered in rippling patterns like waves across water. He could sense spiritual power within those markings. Was this a demonic beast egg? Guan had seen demonic beast eggs before in the outer sect town. Their prices varied wildly, and the most expensive ones had cost such terrifying sums that they had made even him shudder. While Wu Xin and the others were not looking, he quickly slipped the egg into his storage pouch. The white spirit rat raised its head proudly. Guan laughed, pulled it close, and stroked it for a while. After the weeding was finished, Wu Xin and the other 3 began sowing seeds. Only when all the work was done did they return to Mystic Valley together. Tang Yu walked beside Guan and asked about the difficult points of the remnant wind kick. He did not care for swords, so among the 3 disciples, he was the only one who diligently practiced the kicking art. Guan patiently offered guidance while keeping the white spirit rat firmly in his arms so it could not run off again. When they returned to Mystic Valley, Li Ya, who had left that morning, was already back. Zuo Lin, however, had not returned. As far as Guan was concerned, that was excellent news. Li Ya approached him and said, "The Grand Outer Sect Assembly has ended. Next comes the period of exchange between the various sects. During this time, disciples will patrol the surrounding region, and I need to return as well." Reluctance appeared plainly on Guan's face. "Then I will not ask you to stay. You have ambitions on the immortal path, and I cannot hold you back. Whenever you miss this place, you can return. As long as I am still here, I will always be waiting for you." Li Ya nodded, then pulled Guan into the pavilion. After shutting the door, he took 3 white jade bottles from his storage pouch and placed them on the table. These contain a foundation establishment pill, high-grade spirit chi pills, and marrow cleansing pills. Keep them well hidden. Do not reveal them casually, especially the foundation establishment pill. You must save one for yourself. Do not trust your disciples too much. There are more than a few people who have murdered their own masters for pills. Human hearts can change. Guan froze, then hurriedly waved his hands. "I cannot accept this. Even if I served as Valley Master for 100 years, I still would not earn enough spirit stones to repay you." "Repay me for what? You are my junior brother, and I intend to come back and trouble you again in the future. If you refuse these, then I will never return," Li Ya said, glaring at him with complete seriousness. Left with no choice, Guan reluctantly accepted the bottles. He was deeply moved. More than the precious pills themselves, he valued the sincerity Li Ya had shown him. Li Ya continued, "Last night, demonic cultivators fought about 100 li from here. Several people were killed or wounded, and every one of them was a talented disciple from a major sect. Their deaths will undoubtedly provoke investigations. For the next few days, it would be best if you did not leave the valley." Guan nodded and was about to say something when Li Ya turned and left. He did not use the front door. Instead, he vaulted through the window, summoned his flying sword, and shot into the sky like the wind. In moments, he crossed the mountain ridge and vanished from sight. Guan turned back toward the 3 jade bottles on the table and stood there in silence for a long while. At last, he gave a quiet sigh, swept his sleeve, and stored them away. Late that night, Guan entered the 8 Sceneries Grotto Heaven and went directly beneath the azure vine tree. Jiang Qiong was still meditating before the pill furnace. Her aura had grown steadily stronger and was now not far from the 9th level of the core formation realm. Seeing her progress, Guan felt genuinely pleased for her. She was finally about to leave. "My good grand disciple, it has been so long since your last visit that I thought you had forgotten me," Jiang Qiong said. Guan stepped forward and bowed. "Grandmaster, could you please stop adding the word good every time you address me? This grand disciple truly cannot bear it." She really was a demonic cultivator. Even the way she spoke was improper. Jiang Qiong gave a soft laugh but said nothing more. Guan took the demonic beast egg from his storage pouch and held it out to her. "Grandmaster, what kind of demonic beast is this?" Jiang Qiong opened her eyes. At first, she gave the egg only a casual glance and seemed completely uninterested. She was about to look away when she suddenly noticed something. Her beautiful eyes widened sharply. She turned at once and snatched the egg from Guan's hands. Jiang Qiong examined the egg carefully. Her gaze seemed capable of seeing through the shell itself. Guan's heart tightened. As expected, this thing was anything but ordinary. When Li Ya had mentioned that demonic cultivators had fought nearby the previous night, Guan had immediately suspected that the white spirit rat had found the egg at the battlefield. He had lived in this region for years. Forget a demonic beast egg. He had never even seen a demonic beast in the wild here. "It truly is the sacred beast of the Gu Hao sect," Jiang Qiong murmured. "A sacred beast?" Guan's eyelid twitched. For a moment, he wanted to strangle the white spirit rat. Was it trying to bring disaster down on him? Jiang Qiong returned the egg to Guan and said, "This is a Hao Dragon, an exceedingly rare demonic beast in the mortal world. It carries the bloodline of a true dragon. It can mature into a 9th-grade demonic beast, and its potential is extraordinary. At its peak, it possesses the power to move mountains and fill seas. The Gu Hao sect reveres it as their sacred beast. Raise it well. A Hao Dragon acknowledges only one master in its entire life. It is gentle and obedient toward its master, but ferocious toward everyone else. If its master dies, the Hao Dragon will descend into madness and slaughter every living creature around it." Hearing this, Guan hurriedly said, "If it is that powerful, Grandmaster should keep it. You travel through the cultivation world and could use a companion." "Truly?" Jiang Qiong asked with a faint, knowing smile. Guan nodded with complete sincerity. Her expression softened, and she could not help feeling moved. Thinking back, ever since they had met, this young man had always treated her with respect. He had never neglected anything she asked of him. Perhaps his words now were not false at all. Jiang Qiong had feigned death for 70 years after being betrayed and driven into her current state. During those long years, she had hated many people. When she first met Guan, she had been full of suspicion, which was why she had tested him after restoring her body. Jiang Qiong firmly pushed the Hao Dragon egg back into Guan's hands. Their fingers brushed, and a trace of coldness passed over his skin. "Do not refuse. The azure vine tree also needs a powerful guardian. Raise the Hao Dragon here, and you will not have to worry about anyone discovering it," Jiang Qiong said seriously. Guan considered her words and found them reasonable. It could also guard against thieves who wanted to steal his trees or spirit flowers. Guan sighed. "Very well." Jiang Qiong began explaining the legends and habits of the Hao Dragon, allowing him to understand the creature more clearly. The more Guan heard, the more excited he became. Expectations for the Hao Dragon began to grow in his heart. In the end, he left the egg beneath the azure vine tree and entrusted it to Jiang Qing's care. Over the following month, fewer and fewer cultivators crossed the skies above Mystic Valley. Eventually, 3 full days passed without a single person flying overhead. Only then did Guan finally leave the valley. He still had his secondary work to attend to. It provided a considerable amount of lifespan and could not be neglected. Compared to fighting and killing, he much preferred earning lifespan in a steady and honest manner. At noon, he first visited Chen Li's cave residence. Chen Li was not there, so Guan spent the time it took an incense stick to burn tending the medicinal herbs before leaving. Next came Li Xuanyu's cave residence. She was not there either, so Guan began his work. A princess was a princess after all. She had recently planted another batch of 5th-grade medicinal herbs, filling Guan with anticipation. 5th-grade herbs required at least 5 years to mature, and some needed more than 10. Fortunately, Guan could afford to wait. Just as he was about to finish, Li Xuanyu returned. "Greetings, Senior Li," Guan said, hurriedly stepping forward and cupping his hands. Dressed in white, Li Xuanyu remained as cool and pure as ever. However, Guan could sense that her aura was unstable. She was injured again. She truly loved fighting. Li Xuanyu said softly, "You and Li Ya are fellow disciples. There is no need to call me senior. You may call me senior sister." Guan could only comply. "Senior sister Li." Li Xuanyu glanced around the cave residence. "You have done very well. Would you like me to introduce you to more work of this kind? If I speak on your behalf, those cave masters will give me face. They will not treat you poorly." "Yes. Many thanks, senior sister Li," Guan answered at once. He still wanted to accumulate 100,000 years of lifespan as soon as possible and break through to the realm above Nascent Soul. Naturally, he would not refuse. Li Xuanyu nodded. "Come back in 1 month," Guan bowed, then took his leave. After he departed, Li Xuanyu walked to the bed and began circulating her cultivation to heal herself. Her complexion quickly turned deathly pale. A moment later, she coughed up a mouthful of black blood, splattering it across the floor. Outside the cave residence, Guan sensed her aura erupt sharply, most likely because her injuries had flared up again. Even so, he did not stop. He did not know how to heal her, and he did not want to become too deeply entangled with Li Xuanyu. After the Grand Outer Sect Assembly ended, time in Mystic Valley continued to pass as swiftly as ever. By the next time Guan met Li Xuanyu, more than half of her injuries had healed. Under her guidance, he was introduced to 5 outer disciples. From that point on, he managed the cave residences of 7 outer disciples at the same time. Because the situation in each cave residence was different, he had to leave the valley every 3 or 4 days. To make travel more convenient, he raised his apparent cultivation to the 6th level of the key refinement realm. Every time he went out, he used the sword control art. After all, the spiritual power of a 5th level key refinement cultivator would not be enough to make the round trip in a single day. He did not use Tiansu. Instead, he rode an ordinary flying sword, a magical artifact left behind by Cheng Shuanden. Summer passed and autumn arrived. Fallen leaves drifted through the air and blanketed Mystic Valley. Then autumn gave way to winter, and snow covered the valley in a vast field of white. Guan sat inside the pavilion, writing furiously with a brush. After reading so many volumes of the Azure Hero's travels, he wanted to write a book of his own. During his last visit to the outer sect, he had learned that authors could earn spirit stones, though the approval process was extremely strict. As someone reincarnated from Earth, Guan decided to bring a little shock and awe to the Taishuan sect. The more spirit stones he earned, the more seeds he could buy. He was writing with great enthusiasm when he suddenly sensed something and frowned. Outside the window, the sky abruptly darkened. Black clouds surged in from the horizon, and a terrifying heavenly might spread across the mountains and forests. "Is this a lightning tribulation?" Guan stared at the storm clouds outside. His brows slowly relaxed, curiosity appearing on his face. He was not worried. He could sense that the source of the heavenly might was still far from Mystic Valley. Tong Yu, Su Han, and Zhen Qin, who were clearing snow from the gardens, hurriedly turned to look. In the mountain forest, Yelan opened her eyes from meditation, while Xiaoshuan stepped out of his room and looked up at the roiling thunderclouds. Wu Xin sat meditating on a mountain summit. Even the snow filling the sky could not conceal his figure. He stared toward the horizon with a deep frown. "What powerful sword intent," he murmured. Although his cultivation was low, he came from the heavenly autumn pavilion and possessed no shortage of knowledge. The entire sky was quickly swallowed by storm clouds, like a boundless ocean churning with monstrous waves. The snow-covered forest sank into darkness. The wind grew stronger and stronger, making the mountains sway and shaking heavy sheets of accumulated snow from the trees. The heavenly might disturbed Guan so badly that he could no longer concentrate on writing. He went downstairs and called the disciples to tend every garden. After some time, several cultivators streaked across the skies above Mystic Valley, flying toward the source of the heavenly might before disappearing into the whirling snow. The sight made the disciples even more nervous. None of them knew what was truly happening. It was not until near dusk that a peal of thunder shook heaven and earth. Guan stood on a mountain summit. Far in the distance, lightning roared across the horizon. Countless bolts intertwined as they descended toward a single point on the ground, forming an enormous fan of dazzling light. The flashes illuminated Guan's face, while his black robes snapped violently in the wind. Such a terrifying lightning tribulation. No wonder I failed so many times during simulated cultivation, he thought. The resentment that had been building inside him for years finally dispersed. Simulated cultivation consumed more lifespan than cultivating in reality, but at least it was safe. Looking at his achievements, he had already reached the 9th level of the Nascent Soul Realm at only 28 years old. Could the Taishuan sect produce a second person like him? Guan turned and descended the mountain, ready to continue writing. That night, thunder rolled without pause, preventing everyone in the Medicine Valley from cultivating in peace. By noon the following day, the thunder still had not ended. The wind grew increasingly violent, as though a blizzard were about to descend. From time to time, Guan led the disciples out to protect the medicinal herbs. Only after 3 full days and nights did the thunder finally stop. When the storm clouds dispersed and sunlight once again fell from the sky, the disciples of Mystic Valley released collective sighs of relief. Yet they had not even enjoyed half a day of peace when a sharp, oppressive pressure descended over heaven and earth. Their chests felt heavy, and fear took hold of them. Inside the pavilion, Guan set down his brush and looked out the window with a frown. He could sense a powerful sword intent coming from the horizon, though he could not yet determine the distance. What is he doing? Guan was baffled. He had only just survived a lightning tribulation, and now he was comprehending the sword? Did he have to work that desperately? Guan could only pray that the other cultivator would not affect his Medicine Valley. The sword intent was indeed powerful, but after silently comparing it to his own, Guan felt it was still inferior to the Taichung heaven-shocking sword. After all, he had spent 2,000 years of lifespan to create that sword art. How many people in this mortal world could even live for 2,000 years? Late at night, inside the 8 Sceneries Grotto Heaven, Gu En came to visit Jiang Qiong. He went directly beneath the azure vine tree and cupped his hands in greeting. Do not come inside again for the next while, otherwise, Zuo Yijian may discover you. Jiang Qiong said without opening her eyes. Zuo Yijian? Guan remembered the name. He was Zuo Lin's father. When the father and son had once flown across the skies above Mystic Valley, Guan had spent lifespan to inspect both of them. At the time, Zuo Yijian had been at the 9th level of the core formation realm. After surviving this tribulation, he would be a nascent soul cultivator. Guan's thoughts raced, though he hurriedly asked aloud, who is Zuo Yijian? The man who has been undergoing the lightning tribulation these past few days. According to your master, he is famous under the title Sword Madman of Canghu, Jiang Qiong replied. The Sword Madman of Canghu? Guan asked curiously. Grandmaster, are the two of you old acquaintances? We are. Back then, he overestimated himself and tried to pursue me as his Dao companion. I humiliated him so thoroughly that he became a laughingstock throughout the inner sect. From that point onward, he devoted himself entirely to the sword and entered secluded cultivation. I did not see him again before I was injured and feigned my death. At that, Jiang Qiong opened her eyes and looked at Guan with a teasing smile. Listen to your grandmaster. Do not let your heart become entangled in love. It brings nothing but suffering, Guan replied. Thank you for your guidance, Grandmaster. I will remember it. Jiang Qiong then told him to sit and began explaining the Gu arts contained within the Myriad Gu Profound Art. The Myriad Gu Profound Art included both a qi circulation cultivation method and numerous Gu techniques. Mastering it required a vast amount of time and study. Guan remained inside the 8 Sceneries Grotto Heaven for 2 full hours before finally leaving. 3 days later, early in the morning, Guan was leading the disciples through their exercises. They stood on a field of white snow. The wind was bitterly cold, yet they still wore only light clothing. Whoosh! A sharp tearing sound split the air, causing everyone to turn in alarm. A streak of sword qi struck the eastern mountain ridge. 2 towering trees on the slope were severed at once. They crashed down with thunderous force, rolled along the mountainside, and were finally stopped by a dense line of trees below. Powdered snow burst into the air like white mist. Looking higher, they saw a crack nearly 2 zhang long carved across the stone cliff, as though an enormous sword had cleaved into the mountain. The sight was awe-inspiring. Su Han frowned. This is not the first time. If it continues, sooner or later it will endanger us. The other disciples were also worried, and their movements slowed. Wu Xin sighed. When a sword cultivator comprehends the sword, it may take only a few days or several decades. Who knows how long that person intends to continue? For once, Guan was not smiling. His expression was dark. He was worried about the medicinal herbs in Mystic Valley. The previous day, he had gone to the outer sect and reported the situation to the Pill Hall. Their response had been that he could temporarily relocate to the outer sect city and would be exempted from this year's harvest quota. However, the Pill Hall would not compensate Mystic Valley for any losses. Every medicinal herb in the valley was one of Guan's treasures. How could he possibly abandon them? If Mystic Valley collapsed, the 8 Sceneries Grotto Heaven might even be exposed. No, he had to do something. Guan's eyes flickered. For the sake of his daily life, he could swallow humiliation and endure in silence. But for the sake of his medicinal herbs, he was willing to take a risk. All right, finish your exercises, then cultivate on your own. We will wait another 2 days. If that person still has not left, we will go to the outer sect and avoid the danger for a while, Guan said. The disciples immediately brightened. They were also afraid that Mystic Valley might collapse and had wanted to take shelter elsewhere for some time. Winter days passed quickly. Night gradually fell. Zuo Yijian, dressed in gray robes, sat on a mountain peak. 5 swords stood upright before him, each different in shape with blades of varying widths. Snow filled the night sky. The moment it touched his body, it melted into streams of pale mist, making his presence appear even more imposing. On another mountain 100 zhang away, Zuo Lin meditated beside a cliff. 3 large flags had been planted around him, their fabric snapping in the wind. Whenever stray sword chi approached, an invisible barrier appeared and dispersed it, leaving him unharmed. Though the sword chi could not injure him, the thunderous explosions produced when it struck the formation still startled Zuo Lin awake. He looked toward his father, his sword-like brows tightly drawn. Admiration and longing filled his eyes. People said dragons begot dragons and phoenixes begot phoenixes. Why had he failed to inherit his father's comprehension of the sword Dao? Feeling the powerful sword intent radiating from Zuo Yijian, Zuo Lin yearned for the same strength. His spiritual root aptitude was exceptional, and his key-gathering speed far surpassed cultivators of his generation. Yet all he wanted was to become a mighty sword cultivator like his father. If not for the time he had devoted to comprehending the sword, his cultivation would have advanced far beyond the second level of the Foundation Establishment realm. Ah! Zuo Lin sighed and prepared to continue his meditation. He refused to believe that he truly could not accomplish anything on the path of the sword. Just as he was about to close his eyes, he saw his father rise to his feet. Zuo Lin froze. Was it over? Zuo Yijian stood on the summit facing his son, yet his gaze was fixed higher, locked on a taller mountain in the distance. The night was vast and dark, and no figure could be seen. Even so, he could feel a sword intent firmly locking onto him. The 5 treasured swords before him began to tremble, as though facing a terrifying enemy. Zuo Lin stood as well and called out, "Father, what is wrong? Did you succeed?" Zuo Yijian did not answer him. Instead, he spoke into the night. "May I ask which fellow Taoist has arrived? Why not reveal yourself?" 10 li away, Guan stood atop another mountain, dressed in white robes and wearing a wooden mask. Beneath the mask, spiritual power covered his face, preventing divine sense from examining his features. His white robes fluttered in the wind, blending into the snow behind him. In his right hand he gently rubbed a single leaf. Fine strands of sword chi coiled around its surface. From his elevated position, he could see both Zuo Yijian and Zuo Lin. Before releasing his sword intent, he had searched the surrounding 100 li, and confirmed that no other powerful cultivators were nearby. Only then had he come to this summit. Guan did not enjoy killing the innocent, but Zuo Yijian was endangering his medicine valley and had to be driven away. "If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for choosing the wrong place," Guan murmured. He circulated his cultivation art and poured spiritual power into the leaf. At the same time, Zuo Lin heard his father's words and hurriedly turned around. However, with only Foundation Establishment cultivation, he could not clearly see a person 10 li away, especially at night, with snow filling the sky and obscuring his vision. Unable to see the newcomer, he grew tense. Zuo Yijian felt the opposing sword intent rising steadily and understood that this confrontation could no longer be avoided. A spy from the demonic path? Or perhaps, one of their people? Zuo Yijian's eyes flickered. His right hand closed around one of the treasured swords before him. The weapon was long and slender, with a crimson blade. The instant he grasped it, roaring flames erupted along its edge, making it the brightest thing beneath the night sky. He drew the sword and swept it upward. The blade carved a path through the air, producing a blazing wave of fire that hung across the darkness. To use the devouring flame sword art in the middle of a freezing winter. It seems father's comprehension over the past few days has advanced his sword Dao tremendously, Zuo Lin murmured. He turned and stared at the flames burning along his father's sword, worship filling his face. No matter who the newcomer was, Zuo Lin believed his father would not lose. "If fellow Taoist refuses to answer, I can only assume you intend to disturb my enlightenment. In that case, let this frozen world witness whose sword intent is stronger." Zuo Yijian's cold voice echoed between heaven and earth. The moment he finished speaking, towering sword intent erupted from his body. The mountain peak beneath him shook violently, and accumulated snow collapsed down its slopes. Even the mountain where Zuo Lin stood began to tremble. 10 li away, Guan spoke softly. Too many words. His voice was so low that only he could hear it. Then he hurled the leaf in his hand with all his strength. What flew from his fingers no longer resembled a leaf. It was like a divine sword piercing through time and space. Beneath the snow-filled night, Zuo Yijian's sword intent condensed into a vast and overwhelming force, shaking heaven, earth, and the mountains buried in wind and snow. Flames surged from that aura and transformed into a soaring dragon of fire. Zolin stared in astonishment. He had never imagined his father's devouring flame sword art had reached such a realm. He had never even heard that such a level was possible. Boom! A tremendous explosion erupted behind Zuo Lin, like thunder tearing open the void. He turned instinctively, but before his face could fully move, a dazzling sword light illuminated him. His eyes widened. From the corner of his vision, he caught a glimpse of a brilliant streak cutting across the dark sky. The sword light was so radiant that words could not describe it. The falling snow collided with its force and exploded into a colossal wave of air, as though the entire night sky were about to be pierced through. That image was carved forever into Zuo Lin's mind. His thoughts went blank. He had no time to process what he was seeing. The radiant sword light tore through the darkness and passed over his head. The violent wind generated by its passage instantly triggered the formation around him. A barrier of ki appeared and wrapped around his body, shaking so fiercely that it looked ready to shatter at any moment. Before Zuo Lin's terrified eyes, the unstoppable sword light crashed directly into Zuo Yijian's sword intent with overwhelming, crushing force. Zuo Yijian reacted faster than his son, but no matter how fast he was, he could not match the speed of his opponent. He had no time to execute a sword technique. He could only rely on his own sword intent to resist. Boom! The terrifying pillar of energy surrounding him shattered instantly. The long crimson flame dragon vanished like smoke. Zuo Yijian's sword intent was broken by brute force. His robes tore apart and blood burst from his body. His eyes widened, reflecting the image of a single leaf. How is this possible? The thought flashed through Zuo Yijian's mind. He did not even have time to feel fear before the leaf pierced his shoulder. Terrifying sword chi erupted, blasting him backward through a mountain peak and sending him crashing into a forest more than 10 li away. A long scar was torn across the night sky. Every snowflake that touched it turned to mist, hanging between the mountains and creating a magnificent, otherworldly scene. On the summit, Zhu stood within the formation and stared in disbelief toward the place where his father had vanished. His knees gave way, and he collapsed to the ground, numb and unable to accept what he had witnessed. His father, who had never lost a battle, had been defeated. Worse, he had been defeated without the slightest ability to resist. 10 li away, Guan remained on the mountain peak with one arm still extended from the throw. The freezing wind drove the snow against him and whipped his white robes wildly. Yet the eyes beneath his mask remained strangely calm. You have cultivated for 100 years. How could you possibly withstand the 2,000 years of lifespan I invested? Guan had shown mercy. He had aimed for Zuo Yijian's shoulder instead of his head. He turned and left, disappearing into the vast white curtain of snow as though he had never been there. Early the next morning, Guan led the disciples through their exercises as usual. Zhen Qin stretched her waist and looked up at the sky. There seems to be less snow today. Wu Xin gazed into the distance. Not only is there less snow, but that powerful sword intent has disappeared as well. The other disciples immediately became excited. Could that senior have left? It is possible. Legends say sword cultivators often seek beautiful mountains and rivers to comprehend nature. Our valley can hardly be called a blessed land. Do not relax yet. What if the senior is merely taking a nap? Did you forget the lightning tribulation from a few days ago? Why would a great cultivator at that level need to nap? Guan laughed as he listened to their debate. He gave a deliberate cough and said, "Focus on your exercises. Whether that senior has left or not, we will know soon enough. Hopefully, no one else would come anywhere near this place to undergo a tribulation or comprehend the sword. If Guan accidentally struck too hard next time, the result might not be so pleasant." For the next 2 days, no sword intent covered heaven and earth. The disciples of Mystic Valley were finally able to confirm that the mysterious senior had left, and the valley gradually returned to its usual rhythm. Cultivators still flew across the skies from time to time, but the disciples had grown accustomed to the sight and no longer found it strange. Only Guan knew that those people were most likely investigating Zuo Yijian's injuries. Among them, he had even detected a cultivator at the 6th level of the Nascent Soul Realm. Night fell. After several days away, Guan entered the 8 Sceneries Grotto Heaven to visit Jiang Qiong. After bowing, he said, "That senior, Zuo Yijian, seems to have left." Jiang Qiong was not cultivating. She was refining pills, her gaze fixed on the flames beneath the furnace. He did not leave. Even if he is not dead, he must be gravely wounded by now. "What? Why do you say that?" Guan asked, pretending to be shocked. He even added, "He is a great nascent soul cultivator." Jiang Qiong cast him an irritated glance. So what if he is in the Nascent Soul Realm? There are higher realms beyond it. A few days ago, 2 powerful sword intents clashed. One of them vastly surpassed Zuo Yijian's, and the battle ended in an instant. That proves the other person's strength exceeded his by an enormous margin. Guan secretly rejoiced, but outwardly he frowned. Then could Mystic Valley be in danger? Relax, several days have already passed. When you see an ant on the road, do you feel compelled to step on it? Jiang Qiong replied softly, turning her attention back to the furnace. She appeared calm, but inside she felt a growing sense of urgency. She realized that she might have become completely disconnected from the cultivation world. 70 years was enough time for an entire dynasty to change. She herself had needed only 40 years to reach the core formation realm. Who knew how drastically the cultivation world had transformed while she was in hiding? When you undergo a breakthrough tribulation in the future, you must be more cautious. Do not imitate Zuo Yijian. He probably assumed no one would dare disturb him, unaware that the internal struggles within the Taishuan sect are extremely fierce? Jiang Qiong said in a low voice. Guan asked in surprise. You mean the person who attacked Zuo Yijian was a cultivator from the Taishuan sect? Of course. Great cultivators from other sects would not casually trespass into Taishuan territory. Besides, the attacker disappeared immediately, and no second battle broke out. That means the person could only have belonged to the Taishuan sect, Jiang Qiong said with a nod. She had guessed correctly. After attacking Zuo Yijian, Guan had left the scene as quickly as possible. The moment he returned to Mystic Valley, several powerful streams of divine sense swept across the region, frightening him into a cold sweat. Fortunately, the dragon whale divine origin art was strong enough to conceal him. Jiang Qiong clearly had many thoughts on the matter. She began teaching Guan how he should conduct himself when traveling through the cultivation world in the future. Only after a long conversation did Guan finally escape her lecture and go to inspect the Hao Dragon egg. Jiang Qiong had placed it beneath the azure vine tree and surrounded it with dry grass. Beneath the grass were numerous talismans inscribed with her techniques, allowing the egg to absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth more efficiently. What would the Hao Dragon look like after it hatched? Guan had already begun imagining himself riding a true dragon as he roamed across the mortal world. News that Zuo Yijian had been severely injured caused a far greater sensation than Guan had expected. More than half a month later, when he visited the outer sect, he still heard people discussing the incident everywhere he went. In the past, news involving nascent soul cultivators had rarely circulated through the outer sect. Now the entire city was talking about Zuo Yijian, most likely because he had only just completed his tribulation. Before his breakthrough, Zuo Yijian had been an outer sect elder and one of the strongest figures in the entire outer sect. Gu An followed Zhou Qinglu, an elder of the Pill Hall, to the outer sect's scripture hall. The scripture hall managed every library in the outer sect, including the underground scripture repositories, cultivation manuals, secret arts, unorthodox texts, strange records, travel journals. Every book that entered the Taishuan sect had to be registered through the scripture hall. Young brother, your idea of writing a book is quite good. I fully support it. If the manuscript is approved, I will speak on your behalf and have them increase the size of the first print run. Zhou Qinglu said as he walked ahead, turning back with a smile. Ever since benefiting from the azure vine fruit, he had treated Guan like a favored junior, at least on the surface. Guan smiled. Then many thanks for senior support. This junior will never forget your kindness. Ha ha ha, there is no need to be so formal, Zhou Qinglu said, stroking his beard. His words were modest, but the smile on his face grew even brighter. The scripture hall was enormous, no smaller than the pill hall. After passing through rows of corridors, the two arrived at an open section where an old man sat at a table drinking tea, his back turned toward them as he looked over the towering bookshelves. Elder Liu, it has been far too long. Have you been well? Zhou Qinglu asked brightly as he crossed the threshold and cupped his hands. Guan immediately spent lifespan to inspect the old man. Liu Chang, Foundation Establishment Realm, 9th level, 226, 270, 340. When Liu Chang saw Zhou Qinglu, he set down his teacup and rose to greet him. After exchanging several polite remarks, Liu Chang pulled Zhou Qinglu into a seat. They began reminiscing about their previous meeting, and even spoke of how they had entered the Taishuan sect together 200 years ago. Guan stood behind Zhou Qinglu, wearing an attentive and curious expression. Liu Chang occasionally glanced at him and felt somewhat pleased by what he saw. They chatted for nearly an hour before Zhou Qinglu finally explained why he had come. A simple matter, Liu Chang said, turning toward Guan with a broad smile. Junior, hand me your book. I will look through it. If there is nothing unsuitable for circulation, the matter is settled. Guzan immediately took out the manuscript he had completed. Liu Chang accepted it and glanced at the title. Investor of the Gods? Not a bad name. He began reading, while Zhou Qinglu rose and walked toward the nearby shelves. Guan stood obediently to one side. At first, Liu Chang paid little attention and read casually. Yet the farther he went, the straighter he sat. Just then, a young man in white strode inside and called loudly, Old Liu, do you have any books about sword cultivators? I want to see who under heaven could defeat the sword madman of Canghu with a single leaf. Liu Chang raised a hand, signaling for him to be quiet. Guan turned and instinctively spent lifespan to inspect him. Gu Yu, Foundation Establishment Realm, 8th level, 34-291-402. A genius. This was far from the first time Guan had encountered such a person, so he did not continue staring. Gu Yu walked over to Liu Chang and bent down to look at the copy of Investiture of the Gods in the Elder's hands. Before long, he too became absorbed in the story. More than an hour passed. Zhou Qinglu returned and asked in surprise, "Brother Liu, were you not merely going to skim through it? Why has it taken so long?" He glanced at Guan. What had this boy written? Could the contents have crossed some forbidden line? Liu Chang looked up in a daze. After a moment, he rose and stared intently at Guan. "Did you truly write this?" Guan nodded. "Indeed. One of my ancient ancestors back on Earth wrote it," he thought. Zhou Qinglu frowned. "Is there a problem? If it is unacceptable, I will send him back to rewrite it." "There is no problem. It is exceptionally compelling," Liu Chang said, shaking his head. He looked at Guan again. "This manuscript is approved. You possess real talent. I will grant you 30% of the profits. For each copy sold, 50% of the spirit stones will go to the sect, 20% to the scripture hall, and the remaining 30% to you." Naturally, Guan did not dare object. He hurriedly bowed in thanks. Zhou Qinglu gave a slight nod, feeling that Liu Chang had shown him considerable respect. Liu Chang smiled. "Will the author publish under his true name?" Guan shook his head. "I would rather not. I fear it may bring trouble in the future. Let the pen name be Pan On." He had originally planned to use the name of the original author of Investiture of the Gods, Xu Zhonglin. However, since he intended to write other books to earn more income, he decided to create a different identity instead. Liu Chang and Zhou Qinglu did not think much of it. Compared with Guan, the name Pan On merely changed the surname, so the choice seemed understandable. Liu Chang then began giving Guan instructions, mostly warning him about subjects he was forbidden to write. He also hinted that Guan should include the Taishuan sect in his stories and portray it favorably. Even if he did not use the sect's name directly, he could imply it through another righteous faction. In short, the more he praised the Taishuan sect, the better his future treatment would be. Guan could only agree. Whether he actually followed the advice was something he would decide later. Writing was merely a pastime for his idle hours. He had no intention of devoting his entire life to it. The moment Liu Chang finished speaking, Gu Yu hurried over and asked excitedly, "Brother, have you written any other books?" Guan shook his head. "This is my first." "Ha ha ha, not bad at all. I have high expectations for you. Perhaps you may even surpass the Azure heroes standing within the Taishuan sect one day," Gu Yu said, slapping Guan's shoulder with the familiarity of an old friend. Guan immediately became interested. "You know the Azure hero?" Gu Yu raised an eyebrow. "You enjoy his travel journals too?" "I do not know him personally. I only know he is some cultivator from the Taishuan sect. I have asked old Liu countless times, but he refuses to reveal anything." Liu Chang laughed and pulled Zhou Qinglu toward the exit. "Come with me. Let us reminisce about the past and give these juniors a chance to speak among themselves." Zhou Qinglu nodded, and the two quickly left the hall. Gu Yu immediately bombarded Guan with questions about how he had written Investiture of the Gods. Seeing that Liu Chang treated Gu Yu in an unusual manner, Guan answered patiently. Only after a long while did he finally leave the scripture hall with Zhou Qinglu. That disciple named Gu Yu has an extraordinary background. Liu Chang rarely treats a junior with such indulgence, Zhou Qinglu said meaningfully. Guan nodded, though he had no intention of becoming deeply acquainted with Gu Yu. People like that had a habit of disturbing peaceful lives. The two did not continue traveling together. After parting ways, Guan bought medicinal seeds and several sets of clothing. He did not return to Mystic Valley until after nightfall. Life continued one day after another. Another year passed, and the Spring Festival arrived once more. The second Spring Festival in Mystic Valley went even more smoothly than the first. No unexpected danger interrupted it, and the atmosphere was far more cheerful. As he had the previous year, Guan brought food to Jiang Qiong. He had begun counting down the days until her departure. Once Jiang Qiong left, he would finally be free to transform the 8 Sceneries Grotto Heaven, filling it with every kind of spirit flower and medicinal herb. After the Spring Festival ended, Guan took Wu Xin to the outer sect and selected 3 more servant disciples. This time, there were 2 women and 1 man. Yan Mei, Yang Min, and Ye Yan. The 3 were all around the same age, only 18 years old, and looked forward eagerly to their future life in Mystic Valley. Becoming servant disciples would not only allow them to earn spirit stones, but also give them the chance to receive cultivation techniques from a master. This time, Guan had not gone merely to recruit more workers. He also wanted to train Wu Xin, allowing him to fully grow accustomed to the responsibilities of the eldest disciple, so that he could help manage the valley in the future. After returning to Mystic Valley, Guan instructed Wu Xin to introduce the 3 newcomers to everyone else. He then entered the northern forest to begin planning a new layout. He wanted to fill the entire nearby woodland with medicinal herbs. The harvest he had submitted the previous year had already ranked among the top 10 outer sect medicine valleys. Zhou Qinglu valued him more than ever and had raised his treatment accordingly. Supporting 9 servant disciples was no burden at all. Guan was even considering recruiting more. People found it difficult to remain satisfied with what they already had. Guan felt the same way about his annual lifespan income. If the amount he gained in 1 year failed to exceed the last, he would feel deeply uncomfortable. Standing beneath a tree, he surveyed the forest and began sketching the future gardens in his mind. The white spirit rat suddenly leaped from the woods. The moment Guan saw it, he felt both a headache and anticipation. He feared that it had found another priceless treasure, and at the same time hoped that it had found another priceless treasure. The rat bounded to his feet and spat a jade ring from its mouth. Guan bent down, picked it up, and slipped it into his storage pouch, intending to examine it in private later. Then he picked up the white spirit rat and refused to let it run around again. "Not bad. Tonight, I will reward you with an azure vine fruit," Guan said with a smile. The white spirit rat seemed to understand. It stopped struggling and lay obediently in his arms. After half an incense stick of time, Guan left the forest and stood on the grass beside one of the gardens, waiting for someone to arrive. Before long, a sharp sound cut through the air. An outer disciple approached on a flying sword and swiftly descended beside Guan. His arrival immediately drew the attention of the other disciples in Mystic Valley. "Eldest senior brother, I am back!" The newcomer was Lu Jujia, who had previously left to take the outer sect examination. Dressed in the robes of an outer disciple, he looked like a completely different person. Guan smiled. "I was beginning to think you would never return." Lu Jujia scratched his head. "How could that happen? After receiving the Foundation Establishment Pill, I entered seclusion. The moment I successfully established my foundation, I hurried back to share the good news with everyone." Guan laughed and squeezed his shoulder. Lu Jujia's physique had indeed become much stronger. The others quickly crowded around, excitedly asking how it felt to reach the Foundation Establishment realm. Lu Jujia answered them one by one, filled with pride and energy. Guan had first met him when he was only 15. Now, seeing him return in such glory, Guan felt nothing but happiness. The path to immortality was far too lonely when walked alone. If the people he knew could all live to old age, he would have far fewer regrets. Lu Jujia's return filled Mystic Valley with excitement. Yan Mei and the 2 other new disciples were especially encouraged. They could now see a clear path forward. If they worked hard in Mystic Valley, they too might one day advance into the outer sect. That night, Guan examined the jade ring brought back by the white spirit rat. He forcibly broke the restriction inside with his divine sense and discovered that the ring was filled entirely with spirit stones. Unexpected wealth? Guan's expectations for the white spirit rat grew even higher. It had thoroughly earned its azure vine fruit. Lu Jujia remained in Mystic Valley for 1 month before leaving again. Everyone understood that after this departure they might not meet him again in this lifetime, unless they too managed to become outer disciples. In the blink of an eye, nearly 2 years passed. Guan reached the age of 30, but thanks to a youth-preserving pill, he still looked no older than 20. His lifespan had surpassed 30,000 years. Mystic Valley continued to expand, while the number of outer disciples who hired him to manage their cave residences rose to 11. His monthly lifespan income increased with every passing season. His life had become busy and full, but he did not feel tired in the slightest. Instead, he was brimming with fighting spirit. In midsummer, the moon shone brightly beneath a sparse field of stars. Fireflies flickered through the silent forest. Jiang Qiong walked ahead in white robes, her bare feet stepping over branches without the slightest discomfort. Guan followed behind her in silence. "This is far enough." "Stop here," Jiang Qiong said, turning toward him. Guan nodded. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "Grandmaster, please be careful on your journey. This is still within the territory of the Taishuan sect." They had lived together for many years, and Jiang Qiong had taught him so many techniques. It would have been a lie to say he felt nothing for her. However, compared to that small measure of attachment, Guan still wanted her to leave far more. Jiang Qiong nodded and raised her right hand. A white-covered book appeared in her palm, and she tossed the manual directly to him. "Cultivate properly. The next time I return, I will test your cultivation. If you disappoint me, your Grandmaster will beat you," Jiang Qiong said in the tone of someone frightening a child. She even shook her fist, leaving Guan caught between laughter and helplessness. Before he could say anything else, Jiang Qiong vanished into the void. Guan could sense her aura rapidly receding into the distance. In the dark forest, the corners of his mouth slowly rose. He turned back toward Mystic Valley while looking down at the manual in his hands. The Ziwei Formation Records. Guan flipped through the manual and discovered that every page contained a special restriction. The formations were introduced through ordinary writing, but the actual cultivation methods had to be examined with divine sense. What a treasure! Guan thought of the formations protecting the Eight Sceneries Grotto Heaven. It was precisely because of those formations that so many great cultivators had crossed the skies above Mystic Valley without discovering the Azure Vine Tree. Although Jiang Qiong was only at the 9th level of the core formation realm, her accomplishments in formations and alchemy far exceeded that realm. She had reached core formation at only 40 years old, then devoted herself to studying formations and refining pills. Even during the decades she had spent feigning death, she had continued contemplating the Tao of formations. The Ziwei formation record suddenly felt very heavy in Guan's hands. The moon set and the sun rose. Morning arrived. Jiang Qiong's departure affected only Guan. Life in Mystic Valley continued as usual. After leading the disciples through their exercises, Guan brought Yi Lan back to his pavilion. He took out a small wooden box he had prepared in advance and handed it to her. The box was neat and exquisitely crafted, as though it contained some precious jewel. Yi Lan stared at it in surprise, then opened it curiously. Inside lay a single pill. "Eldest senior brother, what pill is this?" she asked. Guan sat at the table and began brewing tea. "A foundation establishment pill. I prepared it especially for you," he said with a smile. "Do not tell anyone. In the future, if the other disciples reach the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm, I will reward them as well. But they cannot know too early that I possess foundation establishment pills. It would only invite trouble." A foundation establishment pill. Yi Lan's eyes widened. She instinctively wanted to refuse, but Guan spoke before she could. "Do not worry. I have already kept one for myself. Once you successfully establish your foundation, perhaps you can become my support in the outer sect someday. Cultivate well. That will be the best way to repay me." Yi Lan's emotions were complicated. She had countless things she wanted to say, yet none would come out. Guan spoke seriously. "The road of life is long, and a person will inevitably have many thoughts and desires. Never forget what you seek most in this lifetime." Although Yelan had not clung to him as much in recent years, every time she looked at him, her gaze remained gentle. From time to time, Guan even overheard the other disciples discussing it. Everyone could see how she felt about him. Guan, however, regarded Yi Lan only as a younger sister. His feelings had never reached the point where he wanted to grow old beside her. Besides, his heart was devoted entirely to cultivation. Yi Lan nodded repeatedly and said softly, "Eldest senior brother, do not worry. I will cultivate with all my strength and will not disappoint you. I will work hard to rise higher, and one day I will take care of you." At the end, she even shot Guan a meaningful glance. Guan smiled and waved, signaling that she could leave. Yi Lan carefully stored away the foundation establishment pill and turned toward the door. She was about to close it when she suddenly said, "Eldest senior brother, no matter where I go in the future, I will never give my heart to another man. There will only ever be you in my heart." She slammed the door shut and fled before he could respond. After receiving the foundation establishment pill, Yi Lan needed only 1 month to succeed. That night, Guan secretly guarded her as she passed through the ordeal. Everything proceeded smoothly, without the slightest danger.
The very next day,
Yi Lan hurriedly said farewell and departed. Her sudden breakthrough became the greatest mystery in Mystic Valley. The disciples offered countless theories. Some believed Guan had given her a foundation establishment pill. Others thought she had encountered a fortuitous opportunity. A few claimed that years of cultivating in the mountains had finally earned her the aid of heaven itself. Whatever the truth, Yi Lan had finally left. Under the blazing summer sun, Guan stood on the pavilion balcony and watched the disciples working below. Suddenly, he felt as though the scenery remained, but the people had all changed. Cheng Xuandan, Chenqiu, Lia, Menglang, Lu Jujia, and Ye Lan had all left. Everyone who remained was now his junior or disciple. The most senior among them was Xiao Xuan. Xiao Xuan had abandoned the idea of entering the outer sect, but he was not discouraged. He continued living with optimism and had found meaning beyond cultivation. Guan looked toward one corner of the Medicine Valley. A bamboo fence enclosed several flocks of ducks, and Xiao Xuan was leaning over the fence talking to them. They were not ordinary domestic ducks. Each carried a trace of third-grade demonic beast bloodline and cost 100 low-grade spirit stones. Xiao Xuan had emptied his savings and could afford only 2. Guan had purchased the remaining 10, making Xiao Xuan even more grateful to him. Although the ducks carried a third-grade bloodline, they would already be considered fortunate if they ever matured into first-grade demonic beasts. The flesh and blood of low-grade demonic beasts are useful to cultivators. Should I expand into animal husbandry, I could gain lifespan and earn spirit stones at the same time. Guan's heart stirred. There was no reason he could not raise goats or cattle in the mountains. However, doing so would require him to continually expand his workforce. He worried that the operation might become too large and attract objections from the Taishuan sect. He had once considered leaving the sect and finding a remote mountain where he could build everything himself. But he quickly abandoned the idea, even setting aside how difficult it would be to move the azure vine tree. He was unwilling to give up the Taishuan sect's access to resources. Inside the Taishuan sect, he could buy almost anything as long as he possessed enough spirit stones. Outside, there would be no such guarantee. Some rare materials were simply too difficult to find. At worst, he could portray the Taishuan sect even more favorably in his books. As long as he submitted enough medicinal herbs and demonic beast meat, why would the Taishuan sect make things difficult for him? They might even help him expand. Yes, he would do it. From now on, Xiaoshuan would serve as the valley's beastkeeper, while Wu Xin as eldest disciple would manage the planting. They would become his left and right guardians in Mystic Valley. The more Guan thought about it, the more practical the plan seemed. He began laying out the details. The white spirit rat had previously found an enormous fortune inside the jade ring. After calculating the value, Guan estimated it at roughly 2 million low-grade spirit stones, or 200 high-grade spirit stones. It was more than enough for him to act boldly. Once he made the decision, he immediately began. Guan called out to Xiaoshuan. Xiaoshuan rushed over and leaped onto the balcony. "Eldest senior brother, is something wrong?" he asked. Guan explained his idea. Xiaoshuan's eyes grew brighter with every word, and his excitement continued to rise. The two agreed immediately. In the end, Guan instructed Xiaoshuan to visit the outer sect and obtain a catalog from the Beast Hall. Xiaoshuan accepted without hesitation and departed that same day. He had also mastered the sword control art, but because his spiritual power was limited, the round trip required 2 days, and he had to rest for a night along the way. 3 days later, Xiaoshuan returned and handed Guan a written list. He spoke excitedly without pause. As it turned out, he had encountered Lu Jujia in the outer sect. Lu Jujia had personally guided him through the Beast Hall and helped him inspect the available demonic beasts, saving him a great deal of trouble. After discussing the matter, Guan decided to purchase 50 young beasts as an initial trial. Only with an order of that size would the outer sect Beast Hall agree to deliver them directly to Mystic Valley. After resting for 1 day, Xiaoshuan departed again with the spirit stones Guan had given him. Tong Yu and Su Han accompanied him. Both had reached the 5th level of the Qi refinement realm, and traveling as a group would make them appear less vulnerable. If a batch of medicinal herbs had not been close to harvest, Guan would have gone personally. He feared that someone might deceive them. Fortunately, nothing like that happened. The Taishuan sect was, after all, an orthodox righteous sect. 5 days later, Xiaoshuan and the other two returned on flying swords. Behind them flew 3 twin-horned white eagles, each with a wingspan of 5 zhang. A cultivator stood on the back of every eagle, while their talons carried enormous cages. Inside the cages, young goats were tied securely in place. Their horns had not yet grown, and the flight had not shaken them violently, thanks to the talismans attached to the cages. After everyone landed, Guan stepped forward to offer his thanks. The 3 disciples from the Beast Hall were not particularly warm, but neither did they embarrass him. After exchanging a few polite words, they mounted the eagles and flew away. "Xiaochuan, these goats cost me 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. You must take excellent care of them," Guan said, patting his shoulder with deep meaning. They were not merely spirit stones. They were his lifespan. Once fully grown, these young demonic goats would possess the strength of first-grade beasts, roughly equivalent to cultivators at the 3rd level of the Qi refinement realm. However, they would not develop intelligence like humans. Xiaoshuan nodded solemnly. Then he scratched his head and asked, "Eldest senior brother, could we recruit 2 more servant disciples to help me? Ask the others to assist you for now. We will recruit more disciples in half a year. Your senior brother's storage pouch is a little thin at the moment," Guan replied. Xiaoshuan's face lit up, and he hurriedly thanked him. In truth, Guan still possessed a great many spirit stones. He simply feared attracting too much attention and chose to restrain himself for 6 months. After settling matters with Xiaoshuan, Guan returned to the pavilion. Everyone in the valley rushed over to surround the first-grade demonic goats. For people who spent their days caring only about flowers and herbs, the arrival of such creatures was a fascinating novelty. Back inside the pavilion, Guan prepared to write the next volume of Investiture of the Gods. Liu Chang of the Scripture Hall had urged him several times. It was time to continue. Hearing the disciples laughing and talking outside the window, Guan's lips curved into an unconscious smile. In a quiet courtyard, the white-haired Zuo Yijian meditated beneath a tree. He held a leaf in his right hand, his brows tightly furrowed. Compared with the time before his successful tribulation several years earlier, He had aged greatly, and he no longer resembled a mighty nascent soul cultivator. Zuo Lin entered the courtyard. When he saw his father beneath the tree, he strode over and snatched the leaf from Zuo Yijian's hand. "Father, how long do you intend to remain like this?" he demanded angrily. He threw the leaf to the ground and stepped on it. Zuo Yijian looked up at him, his gaze calm as still water. "When have I ever been dispirited? You spend every day staring at leaves. How long has this continued? How long has it been since you last gathered qi? How long since you tempered your sword intent?" Zuo Lin spoke with the frustration of someone who could not forge iron into steel. Thinking of all the grievances he had endured over the past years, the anger in his heart surged until he could barely contain it. Zuo Yijian bent down, picked up the leaf, and asked, "Then why did you once sit for days holding your sword in silence without gathering qi? Does the fact that you held a sword mean you worked harder than I do while holding a leaf? Zuo Lin was immediately rendered speechless, his face turning red. He gritted his teeth. "A sword is a sword and a leaf is a leaf. I sat in silence because I could not comprehend the sword Tao. You are different. Do you intend to pursue some kind of Tao of leaves? The Flying Leaf Sword Immortal defeated me with a single leaf. Do you truly believe the leaf in his hand was not a sword? That is different. The true sword Tao has never been confined to a metal blade." Zuo Yijian spoke softly, his gaze once again fixed on the leaf in his hand. His eyes grew distant. Zuo Lin cursed inwardly. He reached into his storage pouch, took out a book and said, "Father, read this. It is called Investiture of the Gods. For the past 2 years it has spread throughout the cultivation world, and many sects are reading it. Some people claim it records a genuine war between cultivators from ancient times." Zuo Yijian remained indifferent. Zuo Lin placed Investiture of the Gods beside his feet, then turned and left. The moment he stepped out of the courtyard, he could not resist taking another copy of the same book from his storage pouch. Zuo Yijian continued staring into space. An unknown amount of time passed. Eventually, he could no longer restrain himself. He opened his eyes and unconsciously glanced toward the copy of Investiture of the Gods lying on the ground. Autumn arrived, washing Mystic Valley in faded colors. Inside the pavilion, Guan and Li Ya sat across from one another, drinking tea. Li Ya spoke without pause, a book still held in his hand. It was Investiture of the Gods. The Taishuan sect has become famous throughout the cultivation world these past 2 years. First, the Flying Leaf Sword Immortal defeated the nascent soul cultivator known as the Sword Madman of Canghu with a single leaf, shaking the entire cultivation world. Second, there is this Investiture of the Gods. The cultivation war described inside is overwhelmingly grand, and the unimaginable techniques have caused every major sect to debate the story. Some even claim it may record a real event from the ancient era. As Li Ya passionately praised Investiture of the Gods, Guan frowned. Had it truly become that popular? Then why were his profits not nearly as high as they should have been? Was the scripture hall withholding his share, or were the other sects reading pirated copies? On second thought, how could copyright possibly exist in the cultivation world? Li Ya continued speaking for a long time without exhausting the subject. "I wonder what kind of person this Panan truly is. He possesses astonishing talent. I would very much like to meet him. I have heard that even inner disciples and disciples under personal masters are reading the book." Guan asked curiously, "Is it really that impressive? Then I should read it and see whether it can compare with the Azure Hero's Travels. That kind of tasteless book dares compare itself with Investiture of the Gods?" Li Ya said with contempt. Guan merely smiled. Li Ya set down the book, raised his teacup, and drained it in a single breath. Then he said, "I am leaving the sect to travel and gain experience. It may be 10 years before I can return." 10 years was not much to Li Ya, but it was different for junior brother Gu, so he had come specifically to explain. Guan was not surprised. What cultivator could remain inside a sect for an entire lifetime? Sooner or later, everyone had to venture outside, seek opportunities, temper the Tao, and refine the heart. "Do you have a destination in mind?" Guan asked casually. Li Ya smiled. "I do. A great soul transformation cultivator has appeared in southern Ji province. His lifespan is nearing its end, and before he dies, he wants to find a suitable successor. He is a sword cultivator, so I intend to try my luck." "Soul transformation? What kind of realm is that? How many realms above Nascent Soul is it?" Guan asked, pretending to be curious. Li Ya laughed. "The soul transformation realm is directly above Nascent Soul. If it were many realms higher, that cultivator would never have appeared in Taikong. This land contains more than the Taikong dynasty. I have also heard that beyond the seas lies an even broader world, but without nascent soul cultivation, crossing the ocean is extremely difficult." He rose to his feet and smiled proudly. "Junior brother Gu, when I return, I will be the successor of a great soul transformation cultivator. At that time, if you call me senior brother properly, perhaps I will allow you to witness a soul transformation technique." With that, he turned toward the window, vaulted outside, and departed on his flying sword. Guan stared at the footprints left on the windowsill, his brows drawn tightly together. The soul transformation realm? He had to reach it before Li Ya returned. After Li Ya left, Guan devoted himself to developing Mystic Valley. His idle days grew increasingly rare, mostly because the young demonic goats were exceptionally good at causing trouble. By the time they were 4 months old, they could race through the mountain forest as easily as if they were crossing flat ground, moving with the agility of cheetahs from his previous life on Earth. If the valley had not been filled with cultivators, every last one would have escaped. Guan had no choice but to study the Ziwei formation records left by Jiang Qiong and learn several low-level restrictions to seal the area where the goats were raised. After another half-year, he instructed Wu Xin to take Xiaoshuan to the outer sect and recruit 2 more servant disciples, Chen Hong and Zhen Xiaoer. Their aptitudes were ordinary, which pleased him greatly. Mystic Valley now had 10 servant disciples, and every day was filled with activity. Time passed like a white horse flashing through a narrow gap, gone before it could be grasped. In the blink of an eye, 3 years passed. Autumn arrived once more. Xiaoshuan was inspecting the gardens, followed by orderly lines of ducks that stretched behind him without end. On the mountain peaks surrounding the Medicine Valley, disciples meditated and absorbed spiritual qi. From time to time, the forest trembled as Tang Yu and Su Han chased the demonic goats through the mountains. Gu An emerged from the western forest with a smile on his face. He had just harvested another batch of medicinal herbs and gained several hundred years of lifespan, bringing him ever closer to the milestone of 100,000 years. His total lifespan had now reached 80,000 years. Over the past 3 years, he had gained nearly 50,000 years of lifespan. Most of it came from medicinal herbs that had been planted many years earlier and finally reached maturity. Of that amount, 10,000 years had been earned by managing the cave residences of outer disciples. The petite Zhen Qin ran out of the forest carrying a bamboo basket on her back. She hurried to Guan's side. "Master, can you teach me alchemy today?" A dry leaf was still caught in her hair, and the strands around her cheeks were slightly disheveled. Guan laughed. "Of course, but you must use your own medicinal herbs. That way, you will learn to be careful." After hearing that Guan had once taken a youth-preserving pill, Zhen Qin had immediately become fascinated with alchemy. She had pestered him about it for nearly half a year. "I prepared everything long ago," she said excitedly, bouncing beside him like a child who had not yet grown up. Whoosh! A sharp sound streaked across the skies above Mystic Valley. Guan looked up and instinctively spent lifespan to inspect the passing cultivator. Another Nascent Soul Cultivator. This year alone, more than 10 Nascent Soul Cultivators had flown across the skies above Mystic Valley. The frequency made Guan vaguely uneasy. He had the persistent feeling that something major was about to happen. Even the Grand Outer Sect Assembly years ago had not attracted so many Nascent Soul Cultivators. This was not good. The Dragon Whale Divine Origin art needed to be upgraded. What if a great cultivator far beyond the Nascent Soul Realm appeared and saw through his true cultivation? Guan silently made his decision. As the years passed, the amount of lifespan granted by the Dragon Whale Divine Origin art had steadily declined. At present, gaining even 1 year of lifespan after half a year of cultivation was already considered good. In another 10 years, the art would probably cease extending his lifespan entirely. Guan brought Zhen Qin back to the pavilion and began teaching her the basics of alchemy. Late that night, he quietly entered the 8 Sceneries Grotto Heaven. Since Jiang Qiong's departure, he had explored the other 6 cave passages. At the end of each passage lay corpses similar to Meng Lang, refined by Cheng Xuandan and Jiang Qiong through different Gu techniques from the myriad Gu profound art. For the time being, Guan had no intention of touching those ancient corpses. He went directly beneath the azure vine tree, lifted the hem of his robe and sat down to meditate. At that moment, a black shadow dropped from the tree and burrowed into his arms. A small black dragon. Its slender body was about 2 qi long. A pair of dragon horns rose from its head. Whiskers extended from the corners of its mouth, and tiny black scales covered its entire body. 4 sharp claws completed its form. It looked almost exactly like the dragons of ancient Chinese legend from Guan's previous life, except for its dark coloration. This was the sacred beast of the Gu Hao sect, the Hao Dragon. Guan stroked it while inspecting its lifespan. Hao Dragon, 1st grade, 1965 8000. Its lifespan had increased again. When the Hao Dragon first hatched, it had possessed only 500 years of lifespan. After a single year, that number had nearly doubled. It truly deserved to be a demonic beast with 9th grade potential. Guan recalled how the Hao Dragon had acknowledged him as its master the previous year and could not help smiling. The moment it hatched, it had bitten him. In anger, he had flung it away, only for it to crawl back pitifully and rub against him. Guan suspected that the Hao Dragon had not truly performed a master recognition ritual. Instead, through his blood it had identified him as family. A kind of spiritual resonance now connected them. He could understand its thoughts, though he could not directly control its life or death. A Hao Dragon served only one master in its entire life. That meant that despite its naturally violent temperament, it valued loyalty and affection above all else. "Good boy, come and eat." Guan took the corpse of a demonic goat from his storage pouch. He had killed it the previous morning, but it had granted him only 3 years of lifespan. The Hao Dragon's eyes lit up. It immediately seized the goat's corpse and flew to one side. The corpse was several times larger than the dragon, yet the creature carried it effortlessly in its claws, as though it weighed nothing at all. Guan summoned his attribute panel, focused on the cultivation arts column, and invested 2,000 years of lifespan into the Dragon Whale Divine Origin art. The art concealed his cultivation and aura. It was the foundation of his survival. Most importantly, Guan considered it even more vital than the Divine Wood Pure Yang art. You invest 2,000 years of lifespan into the Dragon Whale Divine Origin art for simulated cultivation. You cultivate the Dragon Whale Divine Origin art for 10 years. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth tempers your body, strengthening your vitality and blood. You cultivate the Dragon Whale Divine Origin art for 100 years. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth tempers your body, strengthening your vitality and blood. You cultivate the Dragon Whale Divine Origin art for 200 years. Your Dragon Whale Divine Origin art reaches the realm of supreme mastery. You cultivate the Dragon Whale Divine Origin art for 400 years. One day you grasp the true meaning of the earth. Your Dragon Whale Divine Origin art returns to simplicity and advances into the Earth Veen Imperial Chi art. You cultivate the Dragon Whale Divine Origin art for 1,500 years. You sense the aura of the Earth's laws. Your Earth Veen Imperial Chi art breaks through its limits and advances into the profound Yellow Dragon Chi art. You cultivate the Dragon Whale Divine Origin art for 1,800 years. Your understanding of the profound Yellow Dragon Chi art deepens, reaching complete integration. You cultivate the Dragon Whale Divine Origin art for 2,000 years. Your understanding of the profound Yellow Dragon Chi art reaches supreme mastery, and you comprehend the divine ability, Profound Yellow Dragon Might. Lines of notifications appeared before Guan. The Dragon Whale Divine Origin art had advanced into the Earth Vein Imperial Chi art, then evolved again into the Profound Yellow Dragon Chi art. It had even awakened a divine ability. Guan was overjoyed. His luck this time had been extraordinary. A vast flood of memories poured into his mind, immersing him in endless knowledge of Taoist arts. The Hao Dragon, which had been gnawing on goat meat, turned its head. Curiosity appeared in its jewel-like eyes. Beneath Guan, strands of green chi rose from the grass and coiled around his body. He closed his eyes and began unconsciously inhaling and exhaling. Faintly, the roar of a dragon echoed through the grotto heaven. The profound Yellow Dragon Chi art tempered the body with the profound yellow chi of the earth, allowing one's physical form to blend naturally with heaven and earth. The so-called dragon's roar was, in truth, the voice of the earth itself. Nearly 2 hours passed before Guan finally awakened. He opened his eyes, and his brows immediately tightened. All the flowers and grass around him had withered. He hurriedly stood and swept his gaze across every medicinal herb in the 8 Sceneries Grotto Heaven. Only after confirming their condition did he release a sigh of relief. Everything that had withered was ordinary wild grass. The spirit flowers and medicinal herbs had not suffered any serious damage. He could not be this careless again. Whether upgrading a cultivation art or attempting a breakthrough, he would have to leave the 8 Sceneries Grotto Heaven first. Otherwise, he might drain its spiritual ki completely. Guan sat down again and reviewed the profound Yellow Dragon Chi art while circulating it according to the newly acquired method. Condense a strand of profound Yellow Dragon Chi and allow the body to merge with nature. The Hao Dragon had eaten its fill and was sleeping beside the remains of the demonic goat. Only the sound of wind remained within the grotto heaven. Early the next morning, Guan descended from the pavilion. He had changed into a set of azure robes. His black hair was loosely tied behind his head, while 2 long strands fell beside his ears, giving him the relaxed, otherworldly air of a wandering Taoist. His body had not yet completely adapted to the profound Yellow Dragon Chi art, but he was in no hurry. If he cultivated every night, he should be able to form his first strand of profound Yellow Dragon Chi within a month at most. As for the divine ability, Profound Yellow Dragon Might, he did not need to cultivate it separately. Once the Dragon Chi formed, the Dragon Might would arise naturally. The so-called Dragon Might was actually the majesty of heaven and earth, capable of intimidating every living creature. Guan called the disciples together for their morning exercises. The moment the session began, everyone could tell that he was in an exceptionally good mood. Zhen Qin asked curiously, Master, what happened to make you so happy today? Nothing in particular. Last night, I read a book called Investiture of the Gods. When you have free time, you can borrow a copy from the scripture pavilion, Guan said with a smile while continuing the exercises. Xiaoshuan's eyes lit up. I know Investiture of the Gods. Almost everyone in the outer sect owns a copy. They say it records ancient secrets of the cultivation world. The disciples immediately became interested and crowded around Xiaoshuan, asking what the story was about. Guan did not join their conversation. His thoughts remained focused on the profound yellow dragon qi art. Over the following month, he cultivated it every night. At last, he formed a strand of profound yellow dragon qi within his body. His ability to conceal his cultivation and aura improved yet again. Guan felt as though an enormous weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Now he could continue living in seclusion without fear. That year passed as peacefully as the years before it. For Guan, peace was the best possible outcome. The winter snow had only just begun to melt when Mystic Valley welcomed another new spring. The disciples were all preparing for the spring festival. Guan sat beneath a tree, completely absorbed in the Azure Hero's travels. Zhen Qin suddenly approached with her hands behind her back. She bent forward and asked, Master, what would you like to eat tomorrow night? I will make it for you. Without taking his eyes from the page, Guan replied, anything is fine. I will eat whatever you make. Curious, Zhen Qin leaned closer to see what he was reading, but Guan blocked her view. Go prepare the food. If you delay tomorrow night's celebration, I may stop teaching you alchemy, he said with feigned seriousness. Zhen Qin immediately pouted. Left with no choice, she turned and walked away. Guan faintly heard her mutter, reading improper books again. The corner of his mouth twitched. Who had spread that rumor? They were ruining his reputation. Every disciple in the Medicine Valley now knew that he enjoyed the Azure Hero's travels. Although none dared mention it openly in front of him, they frequently teased him in private. Guan stood and tucked the book into his robes. Starting today, he would abstain. He left the courtyard, intending to inspect the gardens. His gaze was suddenly drawn toward the valley entrance, and his brows tightened. A man in white robes was strolling inside. He appeared to be in his early 30s, with a handsome face and an extraordinary bearing. What made Guan frown was that he could not sense the man's aura at all. He immediately spent lifespan to inspect him. Li Xuandao, Soul Transformation Realm, 8th level, 230, 899, 3020. A maximum lifespan of 3,000 years? The information startled Guan. This was the first time he had encountered someone with such extraordinary aptitude, and the man was already at the 8th level of the Soul Transformation Realm. However, his current lifespan seemed strangely low. It did not match Guan's expectations for a soul transformation cultivator. Could someone at that realm live only 899 years? Guan suspected the man had been injured and lost a portion of his lifespan. He walked forward while considering the situation. The newcomer might be a high-ranking figure of the Taishuan sect, but Guan could not behave too respectfully. The man was deliberately concealing his aura. If Guan somehow appeared capable of seeing through his cultivation, the man would certainly refuse to let the matter go. He might even suspect Guan of being a spy from the demonic path and deal with him on the spot. Li Xuandao continued, strolling into the valley, looking over the gardens along the way. Guan approached and cupped his hands. I am Guan, Master of Mystic Valley. May I ask fellow Taoist's name and why you have come here? Li Xuandao looked at him with an indifferent gaze that carried immense pressure. Then he smiled slightly. The oppressive feeling vanished without a trace, creating the illusion that it had never existed. My name is Xuandao. I have come from Kong Province to visit my children in the Taishuan sect. The journey was long and exhausting, so I hope to rest in your valley for several days and recover my spiritual power. Would the Valley Master permit it? How could Guan refuse? He agreed immediately, then called Xiaoshuan over and instructed him to arrange accommodations for Li Xuandao. Guan deliberately avoided staring at the man, lest he arouse suspicion. His surname is Li, and he came to visit his children. Could he be a member of the imperial family? Out of all the medicine valleys in the region, he had chosen Mystic Valley. There was an 80 or 90% chance his visit was connected to Li Ya. Guan continued inspecting the medicinal gardens as though nothing had changed. Elsewhere, Xiaoshuan led Li Xuandao to an empty room. The room is simple, so I hope you will not mind. If you need anything, you may speak to me or any of the other disciples at any time. Li Xuandao nodded, then casually asked, On the way here, I saw goats in the forest and disciples tending them. Is this not a medicine valley? Why do you raise so many goats? Xiaoshuan did not hide anything. Originally, we grew only medicinal herbs, but my spiritual root aptitude is limited, and I have given up on entering the outer sect. When eldest senior brother learned that I enjoyed raising animals, he allowed me to follow that path. It also earns spirit stones and helps support the cultivation of the other disciples, so they can enter the outer sect sooner. Oh? Your eldest senior brother is the Valley Master? That is correct. Then he truly is a good man. He has considered your futures very carefully. Of course, my eldest senior brother is the best person in the entire world. The moment Li Xuandao praised Guan, Xiaoshuan brightened and began speaking endlessly about his senior brother's virtues. Li Xuandao became even more interested in Guan and asked several additional questions. Xiaoshuan did not think deeply about it. He pulled Li Xuandao into a seat and continued telling stories with even greater enthusiasm. While inspecting the gardens, Guan's lips curved slightly. All the affection he had shown that foolish boy had not been wasted. Whether Li Xuandao was connected to Li Ya or a high-ranking figure of the Taishuan sect, establishing a better image could only benefit Guan. Could Li Xuandao be someone from the Heavenly Autumn Pavilion? Wait, the Heavenly Autumn Pavilion. A chill suddenly ran down Guan's back, and his smile froze. One did not fear the likely outcome, only the one possibility in 10,000. When dealing with Li Xuandao from now on, he would have to be even more careful. Better too cautious than not cautious enough. Li Xuandao's arrival made the other disciples curious. Mystic Valley rarely received visitors. After moving into the room that day, Li Xuandao did not emerge again. He truly seemed to be recovering his spiritual power. Because of his presence, Guan did not dare enter the Eight Sceneries Grotto Heaven. He remained obediently inside the pavilion all night. The following morning, Guan led the disciples through their usual exercises. Hearing the commotion, Li Xuandao came out to watch. Xiaoshuan even greeted him warmly. Guan merely nodded toward Li Xuandao and continued without any sign of restraint. At first, Li Xuandao paid little attention to the morning exercises. After watching for a while, however, he began to find them somewhat interesting. When the session ended, Guan dismissed the disciples, took a book from inside his robes, and began reading as he walked toward the pavilion. He had to remain calm. He could not allow Li Xuandao's arrival to disrupt his normal habits. Yet the moment he entered the courtyard, Li Xuandao followed him. "Valley Master, what are you reading?" Li Xuandao asked with a smile. Guan turned and raised the book. "Investiture of the Gods. Have you read it?" Li Xuandao's smile deepened. "I have. In fact, I know it almost by heart." "Oh? Then it seems we are fellow enthusiasts. Ha ha ha. From the moment I saw you, Valley Master, I felt as though we had known each other for years. Would you care to discuss Investiture of the Gods with me?" Faced with such a polite invitation, Guan could only smile and agree. He invited Li Xuandao upstairs. After the man sat down, Guan began heating water for tea, igniting the flame with spiritual power. Li Xuandao glanced around the room and asked, "Valley Master, what do you think of King Zhou?" "Excellent." He had barely entered and was already testing him. With his back turned toward Li Xuandao, one placed tea leaves into the cups and replied, "Judging only from the story, he was cruel and inhumane. But if one considers the matter carefully, some of his actions do not seem reasonable." Li Xuandao sighed with emotion. "Exactly. The first time I read it, I thought King Zhou was foolish and brutal. But when I read it again, something felt wrong. In the world of the book, immortals and gods truly exist. King Zhou could not possibly have been ignorant of that. Under such circumstances, for him to openly profane the sacred statue of Nuwa does not resemble the behavior of a ruler." He continued, "And Nuwa herself stood high above the mortal world. When a mortal insulted her, she did not punish him directly. Instead, she sent a fox spirit to corrupt the king's heart, plunging the entire realm into chaos. Can such conduct truly be called immortal? Can it truly be called divine?" Guan turned, carried the tea to the table, and placed a cup before Li Xuandao. He smiled. "There are indeed many unreasonable points, but it is a storyteller's tale. Those contradictions were probably written to make the story more exciting, so they are understandable." Unable to determine Li Xuandao's true identity, Guan deliberately gave an ambiguous answer. Li Xuandao shook his head. "The story may be false, but the truth it reveals about the world is real. Gods watch from 3 feet above one's head, and man finds it difficult to overcome heaven." Guan had not expected him to interpret Investiture of the Gods in such a way. Li Xuandao asked, "If King Zhou had been powerful enough to stand above every immortal sect and divine faction, how would the story have been written?" Guan thought for a moment. Then the final enemy would not have been Sect Master Tongshan. It would have been King Zhou himself. Li Xuandao froze, then burst into laughter. He raised his teacup and gently blew away the rising steam. Guan could not understand the meaning behind that laughter, so he remained silent. After drinking a mouthful of tea, Li Xuandao began asking about the cultivation of medicinal herbs in Mystic Valley. He even questioned Guan about specific planting methods, and Guan answered each question in turn. "You entered the Taishuan sect, yet instead of pursuing an immortal destiny, you devoted yourself to tending gardens and raising herbs. Is that merely because you had no choice, or do you truly enjoy it?" Li Xuandao asked. Guan smiled bitterly. "Both. Everyone pursues something different, and immortality is not necessarily the only meaning of life. Of course, If I possessed exceptional aptitude, I would also pursue eternal life. Li Xuandao teased, "You truly are a strange man. You hide nothing at all." When one looks back at the past and then toward the future, life can be summarized in a single phrase: finding joy amid hardship. Guan replied with a shrug. He increasingly suspected that Li Xuandao belonged to the Heavenly Autumn Pavilion and was testing his attitude toward Mystic Valley. Li Xuandao set down his teacup. "What do you think of the current emperor? Do you believe he resembles King Zhou?" Guan froze. The subject had changed far too suddenly. Why had he abruptly mentioned the emperor of the Taichung dynasty? Could it be that he was not from the Heavenly Autumn Pavilion, but truly a relative of Li Ya? Guan's thoughts moved like lightning. "I know very little. Before entering the Taishuan sect, I was merely a household servant. Now I remain inside this Medicine Valley and hear even less of the outside world. Has something happened? What has His Majesty done?" Li Xuandao smiled. "Nothing in particular. He has simply occupied the throne for too long, and many people in the court and among the common folk have begun criticizing him. The world seems to believe that an emperor should not reign for too many years, because anyone who rules long enough will eventually become foolish. The cultivation world is even more afraid that an emperor may attain the Tao, allowing imperial authority to rise above the cultivation sects." Guan grew tense. The question involved too many levels of power. He did not dare speak carelessly. Seeing his hesitation, Li Xuandao smiled teasingly. "Do you think it is better for an emperor to rule for a very long time, or for the throne to change hands every few decades?" Guan knew the man was at the 8th level of the soul transformation realm. He could not simply refuse to answer. After thinking for a moment, he said, "In my view, it depends on the character of the current emperor. If he is wise and benevolent and can govern the realm well, then there is nothing wrong with him ruling indefinitely. If such an emperor still has many years of life remaining but abdicates in favor of a foolish son, that would become a disaster for the common people. The people do not care about 10,000 years from now. Most live only a century. If their one lifetime is filled with suffering, they will curse the wise emperor who abandoned the throne and left them to suffer." Li Xuandao smiled again. Guan could clearly sense that his mood had improved. Wait, a relative of Li Ya, surnamed Li, first discussing King Zhou and then questioning him about the current emperor. While living with the Ji family, Guan had heard that the emperor of the Taichung dynasty was also a cultivator and had ruled for 200 years. "Your words are reasonable. I truly should not listen only to those voices. I should see the lives of the common people with my own eyes," Li Xuandao said with a laugh. The moment those words left his mouth, Guan's expression changed drastically. "You are the current emperor?" He immediately tried to rise. Li Xuandao raised a hand, and a powerful pressure forced Guan back into his seat. Guan did not resist, fearing that the emperor might detect his true cultivation. "Keep your voice down. You do not need to treat me as the emperor. Simply regard me as Li Ya's father and call me uncle," Li Xuandao said with a warm smile. Without the slightest trace of imperial majesty, Guan no longer knew what to say. The emperor was at the 8th level of the soul transformation realm. This was serious trouble. Li Xuandao said, "Take out Tiansu." Guan immediately drew the Tiansu sword from his storage pouch. The moment Li Xuandao saw it, complicated emotions appeared in his eyes. He took the scabbard and gently ran his hand across its surface. Guan thought of Li Ya. Tiansu had been a sword bestowed by the emperor upon Li Ya's mother. After her death, it had passed into Li Ya's hands. Now, seeing Li Xuandao's expression, Guan began imagining the complicated love, resentment, and old grievances between the emperor and Li Ya's mother. A long time passed. At last, Li Xuandao set down the Tiansu sword and pushed it back toward Guan. "Within the Taishuan sect, Li Ya is closest to you. I have also heard that you once saved his life. Keep this sword. I grant it to you. From this day onward, you are the true master of Tians," he continued. "In addition, I intend to establish a medicine valley near the Taishuan sect. It will contain a great many high-grade medicinal herbs. I want you to manage it for me. I will not treat you poorly. In the future, helping you reach foundation establishment, even core formation, will not be difficult. But you must understand one thing. On the surface, you will remain a disciple of the Taishuan sect. In your heart, however, you must belong to me." Li Xuandao finished speaking and looked at Guan with a bright smile, waiting for his choice. Guan froze. Even the emperor wanted him to become a spy? At this rate, he was being forced into becoming a triple agent. This was not the life Guan wanted. The problem was that refusing would be extremely difficult. Li Xuandao surpassed him in both cultivation and status. If he accepted, endless trouble would follow in the future. If he refused, trouble might begin immediately. Yet when Guan thought of the high-grade medicinal herbs Li Xuandao had mentioned, his heart began beating faster despite himself. He asked hesitantly, "Can I refuse?" "You may. If you refuse, I will erase your memories of today and act as though we never met," Li Xuandao said with a faint smile. Guan asked helplessly, "Why choose me?" My aptitude is ordinary. With your status, recruiting disciples from the Taishuan sect should be effortless. Li Xuandao shook his head. I did not deliberately come here to recruit a Taishuan disciple. You simply happen to share a close relationship with Li Ya, and I wish to support you. Besides, your ordinary aptitude makes me feel more at ease. It means I can satisfy your needs. He paused, then spoke in a half-joking tone. The people of the world do not wish for their emperor to live forever. Likewise, I do not wish for the master of my Medicine Valley to live forever. Your Majesty truly has a wonderful sense of humor. Guan could only say, in that case, I suppose I must agree. When you look back several decades from now, you will not regret the decision you made today, Li Xuandao said, his voice filled with imperial confidence. Unable to suppress his curiosity, Guan asked, Your Majesty, have you always kept watch over senior brother Li? Li Xuandao's expression became serious. Our business is concluded. There is no need to call me Your Majesty anymore. Call me Uncle. That will make us sound like family. Li Xuandao did not appear to be testing him, so Guan obediently addressed him as Uncle. A smile appeared on the Emperor's face. To tell you the truth, I have many agents inside the outer sect of the Taishuan sect. Naturally, I know Li Ya's circumstances. Guan had previously assumed that Li Ya and his imperial father had a poor relationship. Now, it seemed that was not entirely true. Could there have been some misunderstanding between them? Guan wanted to ask on Li Ya's behalf but restrained himself. The emperor before him desired immortality. Such a ruler would inevitably have complicated feelings toward his princes. Even if he loved a son, there would still be wariness in his heart. What crown prince wanted to remain crown prince forever? What imperial prince did not secretly long for the throne? Guan was filled with emotion. He had already considered Li Ya and Li Xuanyu exceptionally talented. Only after seeing Li Xuandao did he understand where their talent had come from. Bloodline inheritance. The 8th level of the soul transformation realm at only 230 years old. Could he have broken through to soul transformation before reaching 100? That was absurd. Most importantly, Li Xuandao had cultivated a secret art capable of concealing his aura. Without Guan's lifespan inspection ability, he would never have seen through the Emperor's true cultivation. Perhaps neither the imperial court nor the cultivation world knew Li Xuandao's true strength. That secrecy may have been the reason he had been able to cultivate in peace until now. Li Xuandao then began asking about life inside the valley. He was especially curious about the origin of the spring festival the disciples often mentioned. Guan gave him the same prepared explanation he had used on everyone else. Li Xuandao became interested and decided to participate in the celebration that day. How could Guan refuse? Half an hour later, the two descended from the pavilion and joined the disciples in preparing for the festival. Everyone was delighted. Laughter and conversation filled the valley, and even Li Xuandao was drawn into the cheerful atmosphere. When night fell, Guan brought out the firecrackers he had made himself. A series of deafening explosions began echoing through Mystic Valley. Firelight flickered across Li Xuandao's face as he smiled. He even drank directly with Xiaoshuan, and no one could possibly have connected him with the emperor of the Taichung dynasty. Tang Yu, Su Han, and the others had prepared several performances. Some told stories. Others staged friendly duels. There were even acrobatic acts. The celebration remained lively until late into the night. At noon the following day, Guan saw Li Xuandao off. 2 years from now, that truly is something to anticipate. Li Xuandao had said that in 2 years he would send someone to escort Guan to the new Medicine Valley. Guan intended to accumulate 100,000 years of lifespan within that period, then break through to the soul transformation realm. No, merely reaching soul transformation would not be enough. If he remained weaker than Li Xuandao, he would never feel secure. Being close to an emperor was like standing beside a tiger. What if one day Li Xuandao suddenly decided to kill him? Guan watched the direction Li Xuandao had gone and wondered why the emperor had come to the outer sect alone. Could the person he truly wanted to visit have been Li Xuanyu? Li Ya had once said that Li Xuandao's favorite child was Li Xuanyu. Guan stopped thinking about it, turned back into the valley, and prepared to plant more medicinal herbs. Spring passed and summer arrived. Guan celebrated his 34th birthday during the hottest part of the year. That day, he saw off Du Ye, who had come to collect medicinal herbs. At the valley entrance, Du Ye turned and said, "You have supplied a great many herbs over the past few years. Young Master Ji Lin is very satisfied with you. Before long, he will send someone with a Foundation Establishment pill to help you reach the Foundation Establishment realm as soon as possible. Once you become a true outer disciple, he will also find a way for you to continue managing this Medicine Valley." After saying this, Du turned, mounted his flying sword, and disappeared across the mountains. Guan shook his head and laughed. When he had seen Li Xuandao off at the beginning of the year, the emperor had said something very similar. In the future, Guan would have to maintain some distance from the Ji family. He did not want them to scheme against the Taishuan sect one day and expect him to contribute his strength. Sects were powerful, but ancient cultivation clans could not be underestimated. Across this land, dynasties rose and fell. Old sects vanished and new sects replaced them. Yet certain great families endured through every age. The Ji family was one of them. I only want to harvest herbs and flowers in peace. Why do so many people keep trying to pull me into their affairs? Guan entered the nearby forest while complaining inwardly. Someone was practicing swordsmanship among the trees. It was Suhan. Suhan had reached the 7th level of the Qi refinement realm, placing him behind only Guan and Tang Yu among the disciples in the valley. Tang Yu cultivated kicking arts, while Suhan practiced the sword. Normally, he used the basic sword techniques taught by Li Ya, which could not be considered particularly profound. Guan stood at a distance and watched him train, wondering whether he should offer guidance. Suhan worked diligently and cultivated with great discipline. Guan could find no fault in him. Something was wrong. He was not practicing the 7 swords of the Li family. After watching more closely, Guan realized that he had never seen the sword art Suhan was using. Had this boy encountered a fortuitous opportunity as well? When had that happened? Curious, Guan deliberately stepped on a dry leaf and made a sound. Suhan noticed his arrival, immediately stopped and turned to bow. Little Han entering the outer sect depends on cultivation. Why do you devote yourself so bitterly to swordsmanship? Guan asked with a smile. Suhan scratched his head with his left hand. I am not in a hurry to enter the outer sect. I want to master my swordsmanship first. Why do you think that way? Outer disciples must carry out missions. If my strength is insufficient, I may destroy my own future instead. His answer delighted Guan. Perhaps this disciple truly shared his way of thinking. Guan asked curiously, is this sword art inherited from your family? Suhan nodded. It belonged to my father, but it is extremely profound. I only began to comprehend it recently. Your father must have been very powerful. Although I do not enjoy practicing the sword, I have witnessed many exquisite sword arts in the outer sect. None seemed as profound as what you just displayed, Guan said. Suhan shook his head. My father was only a cripple. For as long as I can remember, he was blind and possessed no cultivation at all. When I was 7 years old, he died of illness. Later, I found this sword manual hidden among his belongings. He took a sword manual from inside his robes and handed it directly to Guan. Guan accepted it and raised an eyebrow. The heaven-hating divine sword. What a strange name. The moment he saw the title, Guan wanted to expel Suhan from Mystic Valley. A name like that clearly carried old hatred and unresolved grievances. Guan quickly read through the manual. As a 9th-level Nascent Soul cultivator, he could memorize it after a single reading. However, whether he could truly master it would still depend on his comprehension of the sword Dao. He returned the manual to Suhan and said thoughtfully, this sword art is indeed profound, but its mental method seems somewhat sinister. Do you truly need to cultivate it? The technique required sword chi to temper the internal organs, forcing the cultivator to endure unimaginable pain. Some of its methods were so strange that even Guan could not completely understand them. With his present sword Dao attainment, he could say with certainty that the art was deeply unorthodox. Suhan stared at him. Master, do you believe I should not cultivate it? Guan shook his head. I only believe that this sword art may bring you great suffering. But I do not know your full history, so I cannot understand everything in your heart. Whether you cultivate it or not is your decision. If you choose not to, you may remain in Mystic Valley for as long as you wish. You will always be my disciple. Suhan was deeply moved. He tucked the heaven-hating divine sword manual back into his robes and nodded firmly. Guan then took out a book. It was the latest volume of Investiture of the Gods, given to him by Du Ye. According to Du Ye, Jilin had become obsessed with the story, causing all his attendants to read it as well. This is the book you wanted. Guan handed Investiture of the Gods to Suhan, then turned and left. Suhan held the book with a bright smile. After returning to the Medicine Valley, Guan began observing the other servant disciples. First there had been Li Ya, then Wu Xin, and now Suhan. Every one of them possessed an extraordinary background. Mystic Valley was far from simple. That was not good at all. Only after watching for half an hour did Guan return to his pavilion. For the moment, none of the other servant disciples appeared unusual, allowing him to relax slightly. Thinking about it more carefully, Guan realized it made sense. Who could enter the cultivation world without possessing an extraordinary background or unusual experiences? In their own eyes, every one of them was the protagonist of the story. Late that night, Guan quietly entered the 8 Sceneries Grotto Heaven. He played with the Hao Dragon for half an hour, then drew Tian Su and began practicing the heaven-hating divine sword. There was no harm in learning another skill. He would at least practice until the technique appeared on his attribute panel. Before long, The sound of rushing wind echoed beneath the azure vine tree as his blade cut through the air. Several zhang away, the Hao Dragon watched curiously, Guan's sword-dancing figure reflected in its draconic eyes. Near the end of summer, Guan visited the outer sect city. He first went to the pill hall and submitted the medicinal herbs harvested over the past year. Then he traveled to the scripture hall and delivered his latest manuscript. Ever since Investiture of the Gods had become famous, Elder Liu Chang had placed great importance on him and received him privately every time, fearing that his identity might be exposed. Liu Chang openly admitted that he was afraid Guan might be kidnapped by the demonic path if his fame spread. If that happened, the scripture hall would lose a great deal of spirit stone income. This made Guan even more cautious. After finishing his business, he visited Lu Jujia. Lu Jujia was delighted and invited him to meet Ye Lan, who happened to be inside the city as well. Not every outer disciple built a cave residence beyond the city walls. Constructing one was extremely expensive, so many disciples chose to remain within the outer sect and enjoy the denser spiritual key there. After the three sat down in a courtyard, Lu Jujia poured wine for Guan and said mysteriously, "Something major has happened in the Taishuan sect." "What happened?" Guan asked with a smile. Ever since entering the outer sect city that day, he had sensed something wrong with the atmosphere. An indescribable tension hung over the place. Yilan spoke first. "The sect masters is struggling for power against one of the elders. Some time ago, His Majesty visited the Taishuan sect and appointed that elder's personal disciple as imperial preceptor, granting him a first-rank immortal office and announcing the appointment throughout the realm. This caused the elder's faction to gain tremendous momentum. They have even begun spreading statements harmful to the sect master." Lu Jujia looked slightly resentful that she had spoken before him. The moment she finished, he hurriedly added, "The sect master has always been domineering and has offended many elders. Over the past few years, disciples have repeatedly died in the territories outside the outer sect, while demonic factions continue infiltrating the region. Every elder is dissatisfied. Now that the emperor has offered his support, the elder opposing the sect master will naturally refuse to back down. How could the sect remain peaceful under such circumstances?" Gu An asked curiously, "Does the sect master not possess absolute authority? Is he not the strongest cultivator in the Taishuan sect?" "Of course not. The sect master was selected through the combined recommendation of the elders," Lu Jujia replied. "And the strongest person in the Taishuan sect is not the sect master, but the eldest true disciple. They say he possesses the greatest talent the sect has seen in 1,000 years. He spends most of his time traveling outside and rarely returns. I once heard a rumor that if he decided today that he wanted to become sect master, then by tomorrow at the latest, he would already hold the position." When Lu Jujia mentioned the eldest true disciple, his voice came filled with excitement. "That powerful? What is his name?" "Ahem. I have not managed to discover that yet." Lu Jujia coughed, trying to conceal his embarrassment. Yilan cast him a sideways glance, then turned toward Guan. "I have also heard a great deal of internal information through the law enforcement hall. The fierce struggle in the sect's main city has already spread through the inner sect and outer sect. Senior brother, you must be careful in Mystic Valley. When people fight for power, there is almost nothing they will not do." Guan laughed. "Surely it cannot be that serious. Would someone truly dare massacre Mystic Valley and frame the opposing faction?" The moment he said it, even Guan frightened himself. Someone had already dared raise the Greedyreth demon outside the outer sect. What else was impossible? Seeing his concern, Yilan reached out and clasped his hand. "Senior brother, do not be afraid. I will find a way to persuade the law enforcement hall to increase patrols around every outer sect Medicine Valley." Guan naturally withdrew his hand. He had merely lost focus for a moment and allowed her to launch a surprise attack. In truth, he had seen her hand approaching. He had simply feared that reacting too quickly would make his junior brother and sister suspicious. Lu Jujia secretly laughed, only to receive a fierce glare from Yilan. "You two need to be even more careful than I do," Guan said earnestly. "Power struggles like this are often more dangerous than leaving the sect to slay demons and monsters." Lu Jujia confidently declared that there was no possibility of him dying. Yilan, meanwhile, said that because she belonged to the law enforcement hall, others would not dare target her casually. The law enforcement hall supervised every division within the sect. Joining it granted disciples authority far beyond that of ordinary members, but its disciples also had less time to cultivate. Whenever trouble arose in any hall or branch, they were required to intervene. Guan looked at Yilan and could not help feeling emotional. Only a few years had passed since she left the valley, yet she had transformed completely. She was no longer the little girl who once followed behind him everywhere. Now, her heroic bearing made her seem genuinely dependable. The three drank wine and continued talking. Most of the conversation consisted of Lu Jujia and Yelan telling stories. Through their words, Guan gained a far clearer understanding of the current situation within the Taishuan sect. Guan felt deeply gratified. The junior brother and sister he had personally raised were now looking after him in return, giving him a unique sense of accomplishment. If the disciples of Mystic Valley eventually spread throughout the outer sect's various halls, and even entered the inner sect, would that not give him connections capable of reaching the heavens? The thought alone stirred his emotions. 2 hours later, Lu Jujia left first. Guan tactfully declined Yilan's invitation to visit her residence and taste the delicacies she had prepared. Under her reluctant, lingering gaze, he departed the outer sect city. Standing on his flying sword and riding the wind, Guan was in an excellent mood. The sky gradually turned crimson as dusk approached. His apparent cultivation had reached the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm, so his flying speed was no longer slow. He enjoyed the sight of the layered mountains and forests passing below. In the blink of an eye, half an hour passed. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the forest ahead and rapidly approached him. Guan instinctively slowed down. An old man in white robes flew toward him on a sword, holding a wine gourd in one hand. His nose was as red as an apple, making him look completely drunk. "Young friend, please wait!" The old man's voice carried through the air. Guan could sense an aura at the Foundation Establishment realm, but for safety, he still used his lifespan inspection ability. Lin Fuqian, Nascent Soul Realm, 1st level. 603 800 840. Impressive. A Nascent Soul Cultivator. Guan silently cursed the man's treachery. He had actually cultivated a secret art to conceal his true cultivation. The two soon met in midair. Lin Fuqian wore a benevolent smile. "Young friend, I am Lin Kun, a disciple of the Outer Sect Law Enforcement Hall. I have a few matters I would like to clarify with you. Spies from the demonic path have appeared repeatedly in recent days. Shall we descend into the forest and speak privately?" Guan nodded. Refusing at this point would probably accomplish nothing, so he might as well adapt to the situation. The two quickly descended into the mountain forest. As they landed, Guan casually plucked 2 leaves. Lin Fuqian stepped closer and asked mysteriously, "Young friend, have you ever heard of Shu Ruye from the Myriad Yin sect?" Shu Ruye? Guan was extremely familiar with that name. He was the one who had killed him. Shu Ruye and Chan Ji had once attempted to foray into Guan's Medicine Valley. They had even injured Li Ya. How could Guan possibly forget them? He put on a confused expression. "I have heard of the Myriad Yin sect, but who is Shu Ruye?" Shu Ruye was a genius of the Myriad Yin sect, and his father is one of its vice sect masters. He died somewhere in this region. Recently, many agents of the Myriad Yin sect have been investigating the cause of his death, Lin Fuqian said, taking another step forward. Guan immediately stepped back and maintained his distance. Seeing his caution, Lin Fuqian grinned. "What is wrong, young friend? You do not suspect that I am one of the Myriad Yin sect spies, do you?" Guan shook his head. "This junior would not dare. I have simply never heard of Shu Ruye. If senior truly belongs to the Law Enforcement Hall, why would you need to question someone like me?" "Ha ha ha!" Lin Fuqian laughed loudly and suddenly swept his sleeve. Spiritual power surged outward like rolling mist and rapidly covered several of the surrounding forest. Guan appeared terrified. He raised his right hand like a sword and stared tensely at the old man. Lin Fuqian removed the stopper from his wine gourd. A foul alcoholic stench drifted from inside. He laughed coldly. "Do not be afraid. 15 of your fellow disciples are already inside. They will keep you company," Guan gritted his teeth. "Who are you really? Where do you come from? Even if I must die, can you at least let me understand why?" "Have you not already guessed?" Lin Fuqian asked with a sneer. He reached out from a distance. Powerful spiritual force bound Guan and dragged him forward. Despair appeared on Guan's face as his body rose into the air and flew toward Lin Fuqian. Lin Fuqian reached with his left hand to seize him, while his right raised the wine gourd toward its opening. Boom! A terrifying aura suddenly erupted from Guan in midair, instantly shattering Lin Fuqian's spiritual power. Lin Fuqian's pupils expanded. A single leaf was reflected in both eyes. Wrapped in razor-sharp sword qi, the leaf moved like lightning and pierced directly through his forehead. Blood burst outward, but the leaf continued flying without slowing. Rumble, towering trees shattered one after another. Dust surged into the sky like an enormous gray wall stretching more than 10 li. Lin Fuqian's entire body trembled. Disbelief covered his face. You were hiding your cultivation. Despicable! Guan strode forward. He pressed his right index and middle fingers together like a sword and placed them against Lin Fuqian's chest. Boom! Sword qi erupted and instantly tore through Lin Fuqian's body. The force split apart the vast cloud of dust behind him. Trees on both sides collapsed outward, and a trench several li long appeared through the forest. A shadow suddenly flew from the churning dust. It was an infant with an aged face, strange and grotesque, the nascent soul of Lin Fuqian. It fled toward the horizon at tremendous speed. A sharp tearing sound suddenly reached its ears. The nascent soul instinctively turned. Another leaf shot toward it and destroyed it instantly, leaving a cloud of blood mist suspended in the sky. Guan raised a hand and recalled his flying sword. With a single step, sword ki wrapped around his body. He transformed into a streak of sword light and vanished through the mountains. He did not fly toward Mystic Valley. Instead, he deliberately traveled in another direction. As he sped through the forest, a notification appeared before him. You successfully seized 25 years of lifespan from Lin Fuchen, a first-level Nascent Soul cultivator. Oh. It was not much, but there was nothing Guan could do. Although Lin Fuchen had reached the Nascent Soul Realm, he was already 603 years old and had only 197 years remaining. Guan did not dwell on it. He made an enormous detour, then returned to Mystic Valley at his fastest speed. He leaped through a window onto the pavilion corridor and sat at the table. With a sweep of his right hand, he pulled a jar of wine from a storage shelf and began drinking in large mouthfuls. After one drink, he carefully set the jar down. His right hand trembled slightly, and his heart was still pounding violently. Huff! Huff! Guan struggled to calm himself. Damn it, that was terrifying. He had barely been on his way home and had already encountered a spy from the demonic path. Worried that the disturbance from his attack had been too great, Guan decided not to leave the valley for the next month. He would avoid the center of the storm until things quieted down. No, this is far too dangerous. Today, a Nascent Soul cultivator intercepted me. Who knows whether a soul transformation cultivator or something even stronger might appear one day. Guan hurriedly opened his attribute panel. Seeing that he possessed more than 91,000 years of lifespan, the anxiety in his heart eased slightly. The path of cultivation truly was filled with danger from every direction. Even an ordinary 9th level Qi refinement cultivator could be ambushed by a great cultivator at the first level of the Nascent Soul Realm. How could that not be terrifying? Guan thought of the 15 souls trapped inside the wine gourd and could not help feeling sympathy for them. He decided to forcibly harvest another batch of medicinal herbs and push his lifespan to 100,000 years, then see whether a new function would be unlocked. From now on, burning lifespan to become stronger had to come first. Guan took a deep breath, drew the Azure Hero's Travels from inside his robes, and used it to distract himself. Night fell. Outside the window, the disciples suddenly began shouting praise. Guan extended his divine sense and discovered that Tang Yu and Su Han were sparring again, while the others watched the excitement. Ordinarily, he would certainly have gone downstairs to join them, but he was in no mood tonight. He read the Azure Hero's Travels with complete seriousness. His heart had mostly calmed, though a trace of unease remained. A short while later, footsteps approached. The door was pushed open, and Zhenqin hurried inside. Master, eldest senior brother and second senior brother are truly fighting. Her gaze fell on the cover of the Azure Hero's Travels, and she immediately frowned. Guan closed the book without changing expression. Do they not spar all the time? Why has it become a real fight? Zhenqin pulled her gaze away and hurriedly explained. Second senior brother used a sword art. Eldest senior brother mocked it for being too weak and soft, so second senior brother became furious. He has already stabbed eldest senior brother, but he still refuses to stop. Guan immediately stood. Master and disciple hurried downstairs. By now, the people surrounding the fight were no longer cheering. They were desperately urging Su Han to stop. Under the night sky, Su Han's hair hung loose around his face, making him resemble a vengeful ghost. He swung his sword wildly, blood-red light burning in his eyes. Across from him, Tang Yu was in a miserable state. His robes had been torn apart in several places, and 2 frightening wounds crossed his chest. Blood streamed down and stained his clothes red. Wu Xin and Xiao Chuan tried to rush forward and intervene, but Su Han's sharp sword techniques prevented them from approaching. The moment Guan arrived, the disciples hurriedly cleared a path. With only 2 steps, he appeared between the fighters. His left hand seized Su Han's right wrist, while his left forearm blocked Tang Yu's incoming kick. The impact forced Tang Yu backward. Shock filled him. How could Master's arm be so hard? He released a sigh of relief, then looked at Su Han with fear in his eyes. Su Han's wrist remained trapped in Guan's grip, leaving him unable to move. Guan tightened his fingers. Clang! The sword fell from Su Han's hand and struck the ground. Wake up! Guan's low shout caused Su Han's entire body to tremble. The bloodlust and hatred in his eyes gradually faded. Standing nearby, Wu Xin was secretly stunned. Eldest senior brother had moved so quickly. Although Guan's apparent cultivation had reached the 9th level of the Qi refinement realm, none of them had ever regarded him as a true expert, mostly because he constantly belittled his own abilities. What they had just witnessed completely changed Wu Xin's understanding. He suddenly felt that eldest senior brother was far from simple. Xiaoshuan, however, was already familiar with this side of Guan. Years earlier, Guan had subdued Meng Long after he went mad, Perhaps Guan's spiritual root aptitude was ordinary, but in Xiaoshuan's heart his real combat ability was extremely strong. At the very least, he always made Xiaoshuan feel safe. The other disciples were also intimidated by Guan's display. It was the first time most of them had seen him act, and he had easily suppressed both Tong Yu and Su Han, who were at the 7th level of the Qi refinement realm. Zhen Qin was the first to cheer, breaking the silence. The others crowded closer as well. Master, you were this powerful all along. Second senior brother, wake up. Master, did second senior brother suffer cultivation deviation? It was eldest senior brother's fault. He insisted on mocking second senior brother. I have never seen second senior brother so angry before. The disciples spoke over one another while Guan stared at Su Han. Su Han gasped for air. His body suddenly went limp like mud, but because Guan still held his wrist, he could not collapse. He raised his head and looked weakly at Guan. Master, Before he could finish, his head fell to one side and he lost consciousness. Guan ordered 2 disciples to carry Su Han back to his room, then turned toward Tong Yu. Under his master's gaze, Tong Yu's face turned bright red. He did not know how to explain himself, yet he also felt deeply wronged. After all, he was the one who had been injured. Return to your room and stop the bleeding first, said without changing expression. Tong Yu hurriedly bowed and left. Guan looked at the others. Why are you still standing here? Do none of you intend to cultivate today? With that, he turned and walked back toward the pavilion. The disciples watched his retreating figure and exchanged uneasy glances. Although Guan had not spoken harshly, every one of them believed he was angry. In truth, Guan simply had no desire to lecture them. That night, every disciple in the valley carried private worries and found it difficult to calm down. Guan remained alone inside the pavilion. After midnight, he sensed several powerful streams of divine sense sweep across the region. His battle with Lin Fuqian had finally attracted the attention of the Taishuan sect. At first light the following morning, Su Han came to visit Guan and apologize. Why are you apologizing to me? I was not the one you injured, Guan said calmly. Su Han gritted his teeth. He was the one who insulted my sword art first. Guan asked. Did you ever tell him where the sword art came from? You and Tong Yu entered the Medicine Valley on the same day. The two of you have always been closest. You know his personality. His words are careless, but his nature is not malicious. Guan's tone grew somewhat heavier. They had lived together for many years, and he did not want his disciples turning against one another as enemies. He did not forcibly forbid Su Han from continuing to cultivate the heaven-hating divine sword. Such a thing could not truly be stopped. If Guan pushed too hard, he might even destroy the bond between master and disciple. Su Han remembered the years he had spent beside Tong Yu, and could not help feeling guilty. At first, Tong Yu had merely teased him and said his swordsmanship was poor. Because Su Han was already frustrated by his inability to master the heaven-hating divine sword, he had argued back. Tong Yu became angry as well, and his words grew increasingly unpleasant. Rage overwhelmed Su Han's heart, and he immediately lost control. Master, I was wrong. I will go and speak to eldest senior brother later, Su Han said seriously after taking a deep breath. Do not wait until later. Go now. I also need to inspect the medicinal herbs, Guan replied. He stood and walked past Su Han. The two left the pavilion one after another. Su Han closed the door behind them and caught up with Guan. Unable to restrain himself, he asked, Master, are you not going to ask why I lost control last night? Without turning around, Guan said, It was probably connected to your heaven-hating divine sword. Your father left that sword art to you. Whether you cultivate it or not is not something your master has the right to decide. You must think carefully and determine what matters most in your heart. Su Han's steps gradually slowed. He stood before the stairs and stared blankly at Guan's back. What mattered most? Guan had no desire to involve himself further in the conflict between his disciples. He had already said everything that needed to be said. If they truly could not live together peacefully, then he would allow them to leave Mystic Valley in the future and walk separate paths. Guan began inspecting each medicinal garden to determine which herbs were approaching maturity. He had to accumulate 100,000 years of lifespan as quickly as possible. Any herb that was close to reaching its mature stage was harvested immediately. Naturally, he did not touch plants that still had many years remaining. He had not gone mad enough to destroy his own foundation. He now possessed many different sources of lifespan, so he was not overly worried. Above the mountain forest, cultivators hovered in the sky on magical artifacts. Below them, disciples from the law enforcement hall searched through the woods. Yi Lan was among them. Chu Jingfeng stood on a flying sword, his empty right sleeve fluttering in the wind. His entire body carried an air of hardship and weariness, and none of the youthful confidence from years before remained. An old man approached on a flying gourd and handed him a leaf. This was most likely the work of the Flying Leaf Sword Immortal. We recently discovered the wine soul gourd belonging to Lin Fuqian. a branch master of the Myriad Yin sect. Inside were the souls of 15 Taishuan disciples. Jingfeng accepted the leaf and examined it carefully. Its surface was covered in countless microscopic sword marks, too fine to notice at first glance. After a moment of thought, he asked, "Then the Flying Leaf Sword Immortal truly belongs to our sect?" The old man nodded. "Most likely. The previous attack on Zuo Yijian was probably connected to a factional dispute. Judging by how easily this person eliminated Lin Fuqian, if he had truly intended to kill Zuo Yijian could not possibly have survived." Chu Jingfeng fell silent. The old man looked toward his fluttering right sleeve. "Jingfeng, you should release the knot in your heart and restore your arm as soon as possible. If you continue practicing with your left hand, the habit will become increasingly difficult to change." Chu Jingfeng asked in return, "Why must I restore it? If the Flying Leaf Sword Immortal can use a leaf as a sword, why must I hold a sword with my right hand?" The old man shook his head with a bitter smile and did not try to persuade him again. Down in the forest, Yilan stood inside a long ravine. She stared toward its distant end, which seemed to stretch all the way to the edge of the world. Shock filled her eyes. A female disciple walked over and exclaimed, "They say the Flying Leaf Sword Immortal was responsible." This terrifying scene was created by a single leaf. The other disciples nearby also marveled at the Flying Leaf Sword Immortal's strength, and Yilan found herself captivated as well. Just how high a cultivation realm was required to possess such terrifying power? Yilan turned and looked in another direction, worry appearing in her eyes. Ever since Lin Fuqian's death, groups of cultivators had flown across the skies above Mystic Valley every few days. Most were at the Foundation Establishment realm. On one occasion, Guan happened to see Yi Lan among them. She did not descend to visit him and behaved as though she were merely passing through. However, she crossed the skies above Mystic Valley 4 times in a single month. How could Guan fail to understand her intentions? That girl. Standing before the pavilion window, Guan watched the cultivators disappear into the distant sky, warmth filling his heart. He opened his attribute panel and looked at his lifespan. 99,990 years. His hands clenched inside his sleeves. He was almost there. Tonight he would break through to the next realm. Because he had forcibly harvested so many medicinal herbs that month, his lifespan income during the following year would decline. However, after another year, the gardens should recover, and his annual income would begin rising again. Guan had deliberately left himself 10 years short, waiting until late at night to harvest the final amount in secret. He wanted to savor the feeling of burning his life for power. The sky was still bright, and Guan found himself unable to sit still, so he went downstairs. As he entered the courtyard, he saw Suhan practicing swordsmanship on the eastern slope of a distant mountain. Ever since the conflict that night, Suhan had become increasingly solitary. The others rarely disturbed him, afraid that he might lose control again. His relationship with Canghu had already been repaired. After learning the origin of the heaven-hating divine sword, Canghu apologized to Suhan. However, from that point onward, Canghu cultivated even more bitterly. An apology was an apology, but he had no intention of losing to Suhan again. He was the eldest disciple, after all. Guan walked to the wooden fence surrounding a garden and looked into the distance with a smile. "Master, what happened to make you so happy?" Jianqin asked curiously as she trotted over. Guan rubbed her head. "What is wrong? Does your master not usually smile?" Jianqin giggled. "Master, since you are in such a good mood today, could you teach me the remnant wind kick?" Guan looked surprised. "Did you not dislike practicing swords and kicking arts? Why have you suddenly changed your mind?" "I want to become a disciple of the law enforcement hall like Martial Aunt Yilan," Jianqin said excitedly, clenching both fists. It turned out that Wu Xin and Xiaoshuan had also seen Yilan passing overhead. They had spoken admiringly about her, and Jianqin, who had been pulling weeds nearby, overheard their conversation. When she learned that Yilan now wore the robes of the law enforcement hall, she immediately began to idolize her. Guan smiled. "Very well, I will teach you. It would be good to send this girl away a little sooner." She was always interrupting him while he was reading, and so Guan began teaching Jianqin the remnant wind kick. Only after deep night had fallen and every disciple returned to their room did Guan quietly leave Mystic Valley. Before departing, he stopped by one of the gardens and harvested 2 third-grade medicinal herbs.